Part 106. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1087. Gun Temple. A brand new divine decree was sent to Buelyuan. Looking at the content above, Buelyuan's brows knitted tightly. Captain, did the gods take the wrong medicine this time? I even doubt whether the conditions they prescribed to us were written incorrectly. Zhang Lao looked at the content above and his mouth was almost filled with joy. The resources provided above are unbelievably rich. A large number of script points and a large number of rare prop cards. Compared to these massive rewards, the task given by the gods this time is also very simple, consisting of just 2 words, kill. They need to enter the script world, complete a certain number of killing missions in the script world, and purchase divine sacrifices. The script hall will grant them special privileges during this period. Once the gunslingers and even the affiliated teams enter the script world, they will be able to obtain a large number of privileges and will no longer be affected by the main and side missions. It can be said that the degree of freedom is almost comprehensive. It's no wonder that Mr. Zhang is so happy. After their last battle with the Spear God Regiment, it's no exaggeration to say that they are almost exhausted. During this period, the entire team's funds were almost depleted, and bonuses to front-line team members could no longer be paid out. The benefits of second and third-tier teams have been greatly reduced. Thanks to his foresight, with the popularity of Lo Jinfang during this period, the price of blessing oil continued to soar. Relying on the profit of blessing oil, the Gun Gods group will not go bankrupt after all. For them, this mission is like giving timely help. With the numerical advantage of their team, they can harvest a large amount of rewards in a short period of time. The Western camp suffered a huge defeat last time, and now is the time when its strength is declining. It just so happens that we can organize a counterattack to go back. Not only can we legitimately retaliate against them, but we can also make a lot of money by the way. Compared to Mr. Zhang, who was dancing with excitement at the side, Buelyuan was frowning and not thinking about anything. Mr. Zhang, please ask if the Sharks and other teams have similar tasks. It's not just the Spear Gods who are supported by the gods, there are shadows of gods behind the 6th Regiment. So there is no guarantee that other teams will not receive the same task. This matter is not difficult, but you look worried, Captain. Zhang Lao observed his words and found that Buelyuan's expression was not good looking. This was supposed to be the opportunity that their Spear God Corps lacked, but Buelyuan looked worried instead, which made Mr. Zhang a little unsure. Every gain must come with a loss. Those guys are never so generous. There must be other reasons. I suspect that the gods are in trouble. Buelyuan's acuity is extremely strong. He has already seen through those high-ranking gods and gods. They are a group of selfish guys. There must be some other reason behind being so generous this time and something unusual. The gun gods had already been cannon fodder for the gods last time, and they couldn't be fools this time no matter what. Do you want to ask about the Book of Heaven? Mr. Zhang asked tentatively. No, the Book of Heaven is not omnipotent. The information we consult will also be obtained by the gods. Buelyuan stood up and said, I plan to go to heaven to have a look. Just inform Meng Changsheng and leave the gods' tasks to him. You are going to heaven? Mr. Zhang was immediately shocked. It was not a wise thing for Buelyuan to leave the gun gods at this time. After all, people within the guns gods were currently impetuous. Without Buelyuan in charge, problems would easily arise. Don't worry, I'll come back as soon as I go. I won't be in the way. By the way, is the boss of Lo Jinfang coming back? Buelyuan didn't want to continue talking on this topic, so in order to stop Mr. Zhang's mouth, he changed the topic and mentioned Lo Jinfang. No. I just asked someone today. It seems that he has not been in Lo Jinfang recently. Mentioning Lo Jinfang, Mr. Zhang's eyes glowed green. Without him, this industry is too profitable. After working hard for so long, I managed the three industries of Sangxian pharmacy, refining factory, and moon-watching epifilm. However, compared with Lo Jinfang, they are all sunset industries. Now it can be said that everyone is strengthening props. When you go out, you won't be able to say hello to anyone if you don't have two items that enhance Ad 6. Even a behemoth like the 6th Regiment must obediently pay Lo Jinfang. The cost of one enhancement may not be much, but if it is enhanced to Ad 9, the cost is so high that even the elites in the 6 regiments will feel like their wallets have been drained. It is said that Meng Changsheng was almost selling like crazy during this period in order to strengthen the props, so that during this period, the prices of medicinal materials in the exhibition plummeted. There are also other 5 major teams. During this period, they were frantically selling off their resources to realize cash. In the past, the 6th Regiment was prosperous and peaceful, with too much money and no place to spend it. But now the 6th group is so poor that they want to sell their butts. All the money is pouring into Lo Jinfang like crazy. Sometimes Mr. Zhang dare not think about how terrible the running water in Lo Jinfang is. Nowadays, everyone is spreading the rumor that Lo Jinfang's wealth can rival the country's, and its wealth can lead to gods. The owner of Lo Jinfang is already known as the god of wealth, secretly or openly. As long as the other party is willing now, he can obtain a god-level title at any time. Bulletin Luan couldn't help but feel a little disappointed when he learned that Su Tong had not returned yet. He originally wanted to have a good chat with the leader of the 7 gates. But now I'm afraid there won't be a chance for a while. Bulletin looked at Mr. Zhang and his expression gradually became serious. Then, I will leave it to you for the time being of the spear gods. After appeasing Mr. Zhang, Bulletin stood up and walked out of the gun temple with long strides. Only Mr. Zhang was left looking at the decrees issued by the gods on the table, with a bitter look on his face. It's a coincidence. Just when Bulletin left the exhibition, Su Tong came back. Boss, where did you go? As soon as Su Tong returned to the exhibition, Gao Zhou and others had already rushed over. They were also going crazy during this period. Su Tong only said that he would go out for a while, but as a result, there was no news about him at all. Gao Zhou returned to reality and after contacting Meidu, he learned that Su Tong had been missing for a long time. At this time, they were also panicked and mobilized all their connections to inquire, but there was no information about Su Tong at all. If you don't come back, we are all going to go to the underworld. Gao Zhou seemed to turn into a resentful woman and complained to Su Tong. Captain, you should bring our teleportation beacon. I am now confident that I can conduct a higher level boundary breaking teleportation. Although the probability of success is not high, after strengthening, the success rate can reach 90%. Master reported to Su Tong his amazing results during this period. Of course, this is also a way for him to care about Su Tong. Chang Liuju, who was on the side, even had a stern look on his face. You just pat your butt and leave. In our last script world, we almost had a fight over who was the boss. When Su Tong heard what Chang Wuzi said, he realized that he had missed the world of scripts. I quickly inquired carefully and found out that they had also come out of the script world not long ago. This time the script world is a confrontation between camps. The opposing camp is led by the Western camp, and the background is the Age of Discovery. Fortunately, the Western camp is not strong. I wonder if it's because the gunslingers damaged the Western camp so badly last time that there was no one left to fight. They also completed the task very easily. Because they missed Su Tong, they didn't stay in the script world for long and came out to find him early. Counting the time in the script world, they haven't seen him for at least half a year, that's why they are so excited. Head, I am now a leader in the natural system. This time the script world has been inherited by the Archdruid. Now I can resist, fight, and recover. All I need is a transformation prop card to form a complete druid system. Libo stepped forward to show off his current strength. This guy has always been known for his bad luck, and this time is no exception. He was originally a nature player, but he met an injured legendary druid. The other person was blind, so he must be taken with him for druid training. Of practice. So much so that Gaozhou, Changwugu, and Gu Zibai were fighting at sea and almost vomited from eating pickles every day. This guy just followed this legendary druid on land, eating, drinking, and having fun. But at the last moment, this guy directly led the druid tribe to come for support, allowing them to complete the main mission without any danger. Libo was frothing as he spoke, while Su Tong sat quietly and listened to them finish telling the story of the script world. Only then did Gu Zibai ask Su Tong, "Tou, where have you been during this time?" Facing Gu Zibai's inquiry, everyone looked sideways. After Su Tong signaled them to calm down, he said calmly, "I went to Kunlun." Snapped. There was a shattering sound, and the glass in Aime's hand fell to the ground. I saw Aime's eyes staring at Su Tong. Su Tong knew why Aime was like this, but he was not in a hurry to explain. Instead, he told in an orderly manner how he entered Kunlun and what he saw and heard in Kunlun. When it comes to the Yu clan, even a guy like Changwugu, who regards human life as child's play, can't help but frown. A bunch of beasts are worthy of being gods. Gu Zibai couldn't help but curse. Not only was he filled with indignation for the Yu clan, but he also knew that if the gods could treat the Yu clan and other groups like this, then they could also treat humans, even players like them, like this. Su Tong waved his hand to signal Gu Zibai and the others to quiet down, and continued to talk about what he encountered in Kunlun. When the old magic stick was mentioned, Chang Wuju was also shocked by Su Tong's words. "Are you sure it's the old guy?" After receiving Su Tong's confirming gaze, Chang Wuhen couldn't help but take a breath. He knew that the old magic stick and the youngest were not ordinary people, but he never thought that the old magic stick's strength would be so terrifying. When Su Tong said Tai, even though his words tried to downplay the horror of Tai, when he said the name, his body would still tremble uncontrollably. The fear Tai brought to Su Tong was too strong. That kind of terrifying being who is the supreme being of heaven and earth and stands at the pinnacle of the gods. He can easily erase a whole world with just a touch of his finger. In front of this kind of god, these players are almost indistinguishable from ants. Su Tong could not tell everyone in words how he felt at that time, but the fear radiating from him deeply shocked everyone. After all, everyone had never seen Su Tong look so scared. This was not his performance. Everyone could feel Su Tong's uneasiness from the bottom of his heart. Su Tong didn't know what Ni said before leaving, and he didn't understand what eternity they were pursuing. But Su Tong knew clearly in his heart that whether it was the old sect of dead gods such as the old god stick, or the second generation of gods represented by the Queen Mother of the West, once they confront each other, they will be the first to suffer misfortune. After all, he had already witnessed what the world destroyed by the gods looked like in Nishan's hometown, Tianzhou Ridge. So when Su Tong said everything he saw and heard in one breath, Su Tong raised his head and looked at the people in front of him firmly. "Now, there is only one way to survive. Become stronger. We are too weak now. Facing the gods, even if they just sneeze, it is enough to crush us to pieces. Only if we become stronger can we have a chance to have a future in the future. Capital to survive." Su Tong's words were like a heavy hammer hitting everyone's hearts. Libo couldn't help but ask, "Boss, how can we become stronger? We are already burning money desperately." What Libo said is true. For players, the fastest way to improve their strength is to use prop cards. During this period, they have enjoyed 2 dividends again, which totaled nearly 60 million. Now from head to toe, their last item card has been strengthened to add 9, so that their current strength is enough to easily crush players of the same level. This is also the reason why they had an easy time in the last scenario world. When players from the Western camp encounter them, they are not on the same level at all. But if they go up further, it will obviously not be solved by just burning money. In other words, even if they burn money, it is something they can't afford. I have a solution. Su Tong's eyebrows flashed, and wisps of thoughts flew out from between his eyebrows, and then these thoughts escaped into Gao Zhou's minds. Soon, each of them had some strange practice methods in their minds. What's this? After Gu Zibai looked at the cultivation methods in his mind, a look of fanaticism suddenly appeared on his face. These cultivation methods were more profound than what he was currently pondering. The most rare thing was that for him, these cultivation methods were very suitable for him. These are the cultivation methods left by the ancient gods. You can try to practice them to improve yourself. I will also help you use elixirs to speed up your cultivation during this period. Su Tong found many ancient spiritual cultivation methods in the Tianzuiling underground palace. These cultivation methods are all left behind by the Ni tribe, and they can be recorded and preserved in the underground palace. They are all the best among the best. Unfortunately, there is no practice method suitable for me, but there are some practices that are very suitable for Gao Zhou and others. For example, the article about the transformation of gods and demons is very suitable for Changwujia. Especially Gu Zibai, this guy is a pure martial arts practitioner, very similar to Ni's tribe, but there are many training methods that are very suitable for him. Originally, these cultivation methods could only be understood and could not be expressed in words, but Su Tong had the mark left by Ni on his body and could directly understand these cultivation methods. Now he separates his thoughts and directly teaches these cultivation methods to share with others. I don't know how much trouble it saves. Su Tong asked them to understand the cultivation methods, and then he stood up and walked to Aimei. He groped in his pocket and placed a small, shiny golden crane in Aimei's hand. Aimei was originally not comfortable with Su Tongjin's trip to Kunlun, but after hearing so many things he said, she felt cold sweat for him. Even though Su Tong has returned now, Aimei is very aware of the terror of those gods, and even more aware of the terror of Kunlun. Therefore, I can most appreciate Su Tong's dangerous journey. But at this moment, Su Tong used this old trick to coax himself. Just when Aimei was about to tease him a few words, his pupils suddenly tightened and he looked at the shining golden crane in his hand in shock. This is a god body. If the gods died suddenly and their bodies transformed into jade like gold, Su Tong killed Fairy Lingbo. This small and cute golden crane was carved by him using part of Fairy Lingbo's body. I'm sorry, I can't help you kill all the evil gods on Kunlun Mountain, but I was lucky enough to meet an unlucky Fairy Lingbo and send her on her way first to give you some vent. Su Tong said to Aimei with a smile. As soon as he finished speaking, he felt a faint fragrance coming from a woman in front of his eyes. It was Aimei who held her tightly in his arms. Feeling that Aimei made people feel at ease at the airport, Su Tong suddenly felt like he couldn't help but want to take a bite. But at this moment, his cheeks felt cold. When he raised his head, he found that Aimei had already burst into tears. Tears spilled down her cheeks, and Aimei's skin began to crack. You bastards, damn it! Aimei was cursing, and she didn't know whether she was scolding Su Tong or another person, but seeing her getting more and more excited, Su Tong simply lifted her on his shoulders, and looked at her as everyone ignored her. In the meantime, I carried my sister upstairs. Bang! Immediately afterwards, everyone heard a harsh slamming of the door. It seemed that Aimei was still upset. After a while, she heard a banging sound coming from upstairs. Ahem, I'm suddenly a little hungry. How about we go have a barbecue? Seeing that the commotion upstairs was getting louder and louder, everyone downstairs couldn't stand it any longer. Faced with Gu Zibai's proposal, they immediately agreed. The butterfly powder has just begun to bloom, and the bee yellow has not faded. When I first entered Daowen, I still knew the way when the stream turned around the peak. Exploring the flower stream deeply, you will see the clear stone moving and gradually opening up. Su Tong found that his ability to compose poems had skyrocketed since he started studying. After reading poems to Aimee several times, he finally calmed down Aimee's explosive emotions. The two of them were lying on the bed, and Aimee lay quietly on Su Tong's heart, listening to his heartbeat. You and him are really alike. Su Tong was stunned for a moment when he heard this. He was not very good at talking about his ex-boyfriend while lying on the bed. However, Aimee's willingness to tell this matter also shows that she has completely dropped her last guard against herself. This guy is not a fuel-efficient guy either. Just like you, he always likes to have a playful smile. When Aimee mentioned that figure, she unconsciously hugged Su Tong tighter. It's just that he didn't have your luck. He united hundreds of tribes and wanted to resist the Queen Mother of the West. But once he left, he never came back. Later, I heard that Empress Huta created reincarnation, so I waited, and waited for him to come back. Until that day when I met you, I had a feeling that you were very similar to him. When Su Tong heard this, his palm on Aimee's hair paused. Then do you think I am him? Aimee raised her head and glared at Su Tong with her watery eyes. You are poorer than him. Hey, don't you just like my style? Su Tongjian pressed his face against it and said, how about I recite a poem for you? To be honest, I am full of knowledge now. You're not serious. Aimee rolled her eyes at Su Tong, then stood up, grabbed her clothes and ran out. I won't tell you anymore, I'll recite your poem next time. After saying that, Aimee closed the door. Su Tong could still vaguely hear Aimee's mosquito-like voice, but this time, even if we go to the ends of the world, I will stay with you. Only when Aimee ran downstairs did Su Tong lie down on the bed with a satisfied look on his face. I closed my eyes and rested for a moment, thinking about my next step. Ding. A prompt sound that Su Tong had not heard for a long time came from the prop book. Ding. The mission of the gods begins. God's mission 1, Sacrifice. Mission description: with the consent of the gods, special permissions will be granted to all players. During the mission, they can selectively enter the script world. In this scenario world, players are not bound by the main mission and can act as they please. But you need to complete the killing mission before you can return. The higher the kill points, the higher the redeemable scenario points. Ding. All killing missions have been updated, and you can enter the prop book for inspection. Ding. When a player is killed by another player in the script world, he will receive all the prop cards in his prop book as trophies. Ding. The killing points obtained by killing players are extremely high. Ding. When you kill the top masters in the script world, you can directly receive the luck blessings of these masters. A series of prompts instantly shocked all the players in the exhibition. When many players opened the prop book and took a closer look, they even let out huge exclamations. This reward: if you kill 30,000 people, you can get 50,000 script points. Damn it, this mission is so cool. That's a basic mission, for ordinary players. Look here, as long as you kill the top master, you can directly get a reward of 1 million script points. You can also kill players, and if you kill the player this time, you can also get all the opponent's item cards. Damn, you really have to be careful when going out from now on, but since we can specify the script, we can kill other camps' players. Many people were thinking about it now. After all, the Western camp had just suffered a disastrous defeat. This was the time when they were weak. What's more, they had enhanced props and had a natural advantage in hunting down players from other camps. Su Tong couldn't help but be shocked when he looked at the mission prompt, and thought to himself, it seems that the gods are in a hurry this time. They are clearly harvesting sacrifices, but I don't know what exactly Tai will do to Kunlun. It made the gods jump over the wall. Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1088. The gods are so willing to mobilize players to invade and kill without hesitation, at the expense of all the creatures in the world of the script. Su Tong still doesn't know exactly what they are going to do, but he is certain that this is just the beginning. After a while, Ame gave him the dividends earned during his absence. When Su Tong saw the script score of 60 million, he immediately laughed from ear to ear. He thought about it for a while and decided to keep the 60 million scripts separately. In fact, he didn't have many props that needed to be strengthened. But after seeing the methods of the gods, Su Tong realized that most of the props were not actually effective enough to fight against the gods. Props can only be used as a means, but they cannot be used as the basis for survival. The stronger the strength, the better the effect of the props. So after thinking about it for a while, Su Tong had a plan in mind. After asking Gao Zhou where they were now, Su Tong got up and went to the restaurant where they were eating, and ordered a new table of food. After eating and drinking, Su Tong went straight to No Return Spring to find Kang Xiazi. Kang Xiazi was surprised by Su Tong's sudden visit. After all, the mission of the gods has been released. For most players, this is a good opportunity to become bigger and stronger. But he didn't know what Su Tong was doing when he came to his side instead of preparing to participate in the mission at this time. But after thinking about it, I was relieved. As long as you guard Lo Jinfang, no matter how many rewards other players receive, the money will eventually flow into Lo Jinfang. Players work hard to earn script points, but after returning, they throw all the earned script points into Lo Jinfang to enhance their strength, and then continue to join the script world and continue to make money. This is a vicious cycle. Oh, at least it's benign for Su Tong. Su Tong didn't go around in circles when he came here. He directly took out the medicine list and handed it to Kang Xiazi, saying that he was willing to spend a lot of money to purchase the medicines on it. The more the better, the more the better. In fact, Su Tong should go to Mr. Zhang for this kind of drug purchase. In the current exhibition, Zhang Lao's Sangxian Pharmacy is the only one. If Zhang Lao, who holds the Pharmaceutical Association and controls the pharmacy's pricing power, is willing to help, this matter can be completed quickly. But Su Tong was very wary of Mr. Zhang, an old guy. In line with the principle of not dealing with this old fox if possible, Su Tong came to find Blind Man Kang. Although No Return Spring is not a gold-burning cave, the number of medicines consumed every day is not a small number, so it is best to leave these medicines to him. After making an appointment with Blind Kang to pick up the medicine, Su Tong hurried straight to the arena to meet Yan Zioqi. But when he arrived at the fighting arena, he learned that Yan Zioqi had received a mission from the gods to enter the script world to hunt Western masters, and he might not be back for a while. This result surprised Su Tong, and he could only leave a message to Yan Zioqi, indicating that he would find him in Lo Jinfang when he returned. To fight against the gods, masters like Yan Zioqi must win over them. As for the spear gods, Su Tong stayed away from them. Through Fairy Lingbo's words, Su Tong had realized that the interest ties between Buelyuan and the gods were too great to be broken down. If you try to win over Buelyuan yourself, it may not be impossible that Buelyuan will take the opportunity to annex you. A few days later, the number of players in the exhibition became less and less. However, Lo Jinfang's business is getting more and more popular. In the Wudao tea house, several old gentlemen were explaining Taoist scriptures. Normally, this place would be full of guests and friends, but now there are only a few people there. Su Tong was sitting in the corner of the tea house, and occasionally heard some discussions, but the discussion was not about the experience he had gained, but how many script points he had earned for this mission. There is no way, the gods are really generous this time. Whether you are an ordinary player or a certified player, as long as you meet the task conditions, you will immediately receive a large number of script points. So recently, after many players came to the script world, their first reaction was to start releasing large-scale killing skills. Some players even resorted to poisoning, releasing plagues, etc., causing the death of tens of thousands of people in the script world. The result of this is bound to be a strong rejection from the script world, but these players are very thieves, because there is no main task, they only need to complete one vote, get the reward, and quickly leave the script world. Then quickly enter the next script world and repeat the operation to maximize the benefits. It is precisely for this reason that Su Tong originally wanted to find Mr. Tai after he came back. However, after searching several times, Mr. Tai was hosting the script world. The exhibition was full of players queuing up, and there was no time left at all. This is what you want. At this time, Kong Xiaozi came to Su Tong according to the agreed time. After sitting down and letting the waiter bring a new pot of tea, he handed Su Tong a storage box. The box was filled with all the medicine Su Tong needed. Su Tong picked up the box and thanked Kong Xiaozi. The two drank tea and chatted for a few words. At this time, a group of players were heard talking in the corner. It is said that the Emperor's sect has caused hundreds of millions of deaths in a scripted world by relying on means such as plague, and even the bonuses from the gods' missions are so weak. Hey, who says it isn't? Demon likes to do this kind of business. Recently, the prices of some poisons have almost reached sky-high prices. Damn it, I can't even buy a bottle. It's not a good thing that the black-hearted businessman Lo Jinfang did. Damn it, it's not enough for them to just make money, they even increased the price. The cost of strengthening a bottle of poison is more than 8 million. They want money, they are crazy. The cursing downstairs got louder and louder. Both Su Tong and Kong Xiaozi heard it clearly. Blind man Kong took a sip of tea and said softly, "Why bother? You can't stop this kind of thing." Su Tong had an indifferent attitude, holding the hookah pipe and taking a slow puff. "I can't help it. I am from the seventh family. I dare not say that I will help people in trouble, but I can't just let it go and help others do evil." The reason why Su Tong said this is precisely because since the beginning of the mission of the gods, these players are like wild dogs that have broken free from the restraints, and they have used all kinds of methods to divide the script. In the missions of the gods, there are bounties for experts in the script world, and the bounty prices are not low. But even if the players could defeat them, they didn't want to put in the effort, so they simply shifted their targets to ordinary people. In order to maximize their profits, they can spend a lot of money to enhance some viruses, poisons and other consumable props to the level of Ad 9. You know, even for ordinary prop cards, the cost of strengthening them to Ad 9 is astonishingly high, and even some ordinary teams simply cannot afford such a large sum of money. It can be seen that at this moment, these players are already excited by the huge bonuses, and they are all ready to kill. Even to the point of becoming insane. All they need to do is drop an enhanced version of poison in a reservoir or other places, and it will immediately cause tens of millions of casualties, which converted into script points is enough for them to earn back 10 times the cost of enhancement. To them, the creatures in the script world are not humans at all at this moment, but bounties from Chi Kuakuo. Faced with this situation, Su Tong didn't know what to say. He couldn't stop these players from killing. You can't even refuse the enhanced poison outright. After all, destroying someone's wealth is like killing one's parents. Although Lo Jinfang is big, it can't get into trouble like this. Su Tong simply sent a notice to Aimei, telling her that for any consumables such as poisons, a 0 will be added to the enhancement fee. In this way, ordinary players cannot afford to strengthen. Although elite teams such as Demon have enough funds to strengthen poisons, when the cost goes up, the benefits of poisoning ordinary people will be greatly reduced. Eventually, because the cost is too high, this method of poisoning will slowly and naturally be eliminated. The irony is that in the past, Su Tong was regarded as the conscience of many players when he was trying to trick people. Now that he is trying his best to save people, he is being scolded as a ruthless businessman. When he said this, Su Tong was inevitably a little sad. Life is impermanent, and I have realized it myself. This is just the beginning. I heard that the 6th Regiment is preparing to make a big move. Big move. Su Tong squinted and looked at blind man Kong. Kong Xiaozi threw out an invitation letter from his sleeve. The letter mentioned the 6th Regiment's alliance and began to push directly towards the Western world. Just as the players from the Western camp joined forces to besiege the Gun God Regiment, this time they will push back all the way. The most important thing is that this time the scale is so large that not just the 6 groups, all players will be involved. It is said that Buluan proposed this matter. Blind Man Kong originally wanted to refuse, but he also had the support of the gods behind him, so he had to support this action. Do we have to go? Su Tong threw the invitation letter in his hand on the table. The gods are in great trouble this time. I don't believe that in the end, the players will be able to escape unscathed. If I were you, I wouldn't go. Su Tong wanted to tell Blind Man Kong what he saw in Kunlun, but Blind Man Kong did not give him a chance to speak. He just said meaningfully, "Do you think you can escape?" As he spoke, Blind Man Kong drank all the tea in the cup. I have been gambling all my life, and I want to gamble again when I get old. If you really want to help me, just don't let me lose too badly. Blind Man Kong had to go. Whether it was the benefits promised by the gods or the urging of the gods behind him, he had no choice in the matter. Similarly, Blind Man Kong didn't think Su Tong could escape, so he left this sentence in the hope that if he really ran into trouble, Su Tong would come to help him. After Blind Kong left, Su Tong sat in a chair and was silent for a moment, then took the medicinal materials back to Lo Jinfang. As a result, as soon as he entered the door, Su Tong received an invitation letter that was exactly the same as Blind Man Kong's. It was just as Blind Man Kong said, whether he wanted to or not, it might not be easy to stay out of the matter. Quiet room. Su Tong sat cross-legged and saw that the immortal furnace at the entrance of the hall was burning red, and the fragrance of elixirs wafted out from time to time. Lingxin grass, fire ginseng, Wufa powder, yin-yang spring. The voice of the elixir came from time to time in his mind, and Su Tong methodically threw all these elixirs into the elixir furnace according to the elixir's words. Then circulate the Taizhang Alchemy Sutra and the blessing of God. This time he was lucky. When God's blessing was activated, Su Tong immediately reached out his hand as if he felt something. The moment he raised his hands, the feeling of happiness in his soul suddenly poured into his fingertips. In an instant, a mysterious power wrapped around his palms. When his hands gently touched the immortal furnace, Su Tong felt millions of script points were evaporated in an instant. This is the special passive of God's blessing, God's hand. It is activated randomly and script points are randomly deducted, but it has the power to turn decay into magic. Under the blessing of the hand of God, the fairy furnace in front of Su Tong suddenly shone brightly. A silvery white light, extremely sacred, flew around the fairy furnace, and the fragrance floated out, making Dia and the others who were watching on the side smell it. After taking one sip, I felt light all over. Magic pill, divine pill. The scream of the elixir penetrated Su Tong's consciousness. This may be the best batch of elixir he has refined. I saw 9 golden lights swimming in the alchemy furnace, like a real dragon. A crystal dragon ball appeared and disappeared in its mouth. It was the elixir refined by Su Tong. The pills are crystal clear, sparkling, and fragrant, making people intoxicated. It gave off a pale golden light, shaped like 9 little dragons, and the fragrant fragrance penetrated into people's bones, making Yungsuan, who was lying in Dia's arms, twisting his body excitedly. Not only were the 9th grade elixirs born, but also the elixir spirit was born. If Su Tong took out this elixir at this moment, I'm afraid they would really fly away like a dragon. What a miracle medicine! Danjing let out a long sigh of satisfaction. Su Tong's face changed slightly, he secretly screamed, but he couldn't stop it anymore. The so-called elixir is actually the obsession left behind by some alchemy masters after their death. Their obsession is so deep that this ray of obsession lingers for a long time. In order to help Su Tong make elixirs, the master specially captured an elixir for him and used the elixir's obsession to assist him in refining elixirs. Now that after refining the magic elixir, the inner thoughts of the elixir have finally been satisfied as never before. Suddenly, the obsession turned into green smoke and floated out from the center of Su Tong's eyebrows, slowly dissipating in front of Su Tong. Hey, congratulations fellow Taoist. Su Tong saw that the elixir was finally perfect and could no longer be stopped, so he simply held his hand in his hand and congratulated him. When the obsession is complete and you are free from the sea of suffering, you will no longer be troubled by the matter of refining the elixir. Thank you. A word of thanks came from the blue smoke, and then gradually disappeared in front of Su Tong. However, at the moment when the green smoke dissipated, a crystal clear thought finally remained in Su Tong's mind. This was a pure thought left after the elixir's obsession was completed. This thought contained all of alchemy's alchemy ideas and prescriptions, and it was also a kind of reward for Su Tong. After bidding farewell to the elixir, Su Tong turned his attention to the fairy furnace. Finally it worked. Su Tong took out an elixir and saw that the elixir suddenly flashed with bright light in Su Tong's hand, trying to turn into a swimming dragon and forcefully break away from Su Tong's shackles. Seeing this, Su Tong directly released the Dharma and used the pill sealing technique in the Taizhang Alchemy Sutra to seal it. Then he took the elixir and examined it carefully for a moment, then smiled and held it in Daya's arms. Yun Xiang waved. That's right, this elixir was not taken by Su Tong himself, but for the little guy Yun Xiang. The little guy didn't hesitate. He stepped forward and swallowed the elixir in one gulp. However, after a while, Yun Xiang's body suddenly started to feel hot. When the body temperature began to soar, it didn't take long for the temperature to jump to a high temperature of 300 to 400 degrees, so that the little guy's whole body was red, like a small stove, which was difficult to approach. Su Tong was also startled, fearing that the little guy would be burned out. Fortunately, although the body temperature of Yun Xiang was high, there was no discomfort in the body. Instead, he stretched his body, opened his mouth and exhaled a breath of dirty air, and then his body began to grow rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. It used to be the size of a kitten, but now it is as big as a calf in the blink of an eye. The furry tentacles shone with a strange light, dark red manes grew on the body, and the four thick claws scratched the floor at the entrance of the hall and sparks popped out. Although the sub-adult Yongso-lot has not yet fully grown up, the posture of a born divine beast has already destined it to be extraordinary. Then the little guy rubbed his head against Su Tong, stuck out his tongue and took a lick. The good guy's saliva almost made Su Tong breathless. Just in time, with your help, refining the talisman will be even more foolproof. Su Tong patted the little guy's head. It turned out that the reason why he had to go to great lengths to refine a pot of magic elixir for Yun Xiang was to help the little guy grow up quickly, improve his strength as soon as possible, and help him win the big day. The talisman in the wishful furnace was refined. Upon hearing what Su Tong said, Yun Xiang immediately nodded his head, as if he couldn't wait to show Su Tong his abilities. Seeing that Yun Xiang was already so impatient, Su Tong simply released the Great Sun Ruyi furnace. Then I saw this little guy slipping into the Ruyi furnace. But after a while, I heard a clanking sound in the Ruyi furnace. Su Tong was still worried about whether the little guy would suffer if he was just under adulthood. After all, this talisman had a great origin. It was an innate talisman that he obtained from the cliff of enlightenment in heaven. The dragon beaming talisman, the wrestling spell, and the weapon strengthening spell were all separated from this talisman. Later, the talisman simply curled itself into a ball, and Su Tong refused to spit out any more talisman for him despite refining it. I don't know if Yun Xiang alone is a match for this magical talisman. Immediately, Su Tong's consciousness entered the Ruyi furnace, and when he took a closer look, he was shocked. I saw Yun Xiang in the furnace twisting his body and rushing towards the magic talisman like a giant dragon. At this moment, the magic talisman seemed to have encountered a nemesis, running around in the great Sun Ruyi furnace, struggling to escape from here. Facing Yun Xiang, who rushed forward, the divine talisman suddenly shone brightly, and countless talismans and secret techniques were overwhelmingly thrown at Yun Xiang. As a result, these talismans were swallowed by Yun Xiang without waiting for them to open his mouth. Some scattered talismans hit Yun Xiang's body, more like tickling him, and had no effect at all. On the other hand, Yun Xiang was having fun. He slapped the talisman with his sharp claws and heard a bang sound. The talisman was easily torn open by Yun Xiang's claws and a huge hole came out. You must know that since this magical rune turned yourself into a sphere, you have become almost invulnerable and invulnerable to lightning. Su Tong didn't know how many times he tried, and even boiled it with thunder fluid, but he couldn't shake it at all. But here in Yongsuan, tearing it apart is almost effortless. No wonder, every Yinchi's biggest dream is to get a cloud salamander. It's so convenient. Seeing a large number of talisman fragments scattered, Su Tong was not polite. His thoughts bloomed with yin and yang energy, and he used the technique of searching for souls and bones. In an instant, he absorbed all the scattered talismans into his own thoughts. Among Golden Light Technique, Evil Transformation Technique, Mountain Moving Technique. In an instant, various wonderful spells appeared in Su Tong's mind. But this alone was not enough. At this moment, Yun Xiang was already pouncing on the talisman and began to bite madly. With each bite, he directly swallowed a large piece of the talisman into his mouth. No matter how the talisman used its secret method to bombard it, Yongsuan just lay on it and feasted. Gradually the size of the talisman became smaller and smaller. In the end, it could only be eaten cleanly by Yunkin to one bite after another. After eating and drinking, Yongsuan began to shake his body and came to Su Tong's side. The scales on his body began to flash with colorful lights, and the 6 furry tentacles on his head were as bright as a Christmas tree. Su Tong waited expectantly. This is when Yun Xiang truly shows his value. Yun Xiang can swallow the veins of all things and is born to be the nemesis of talismans. However, he does not just make a living by swallowing talismans. On the contrary, his real function is to eliminate those scattered veins, while retaining the truly powerful talisman. I saw the little guy's belly squirming, and soon he crawled to Su Tong's side, looking very painful. This made Su Tong feel very distressed, and he couldn't help but worry that the little guy had eaten too hard and had a bad stomach. He quickly reached out and stroked the little guy's hair. After a while of soothing him, the squirming under Yun Xiang's belly finally calmed down. Then he opened his mouth and spat forward, and a huge talisman shining with golden light came out of his mouth. Su Tong hurriedly used soul searching and bone searching to incorporate it into his thoughts. Suddenly, Su Tong's mind was shocked, and a powerful force began to rush into Su Tong's thoughts. It was the innate way, a talisman born when the world first opened. It contained huge divine power, and it was difficult for Su Tong to fully absorb it with just his thoughts at this moment. Fortunately, at this moment, Su Tong's mind moved and he quickly inspired to prepare for a rainy day and borrow strength from his future. With the blessing of the power of the future, Su Tong's thoughts tripled from 108 in an instant. 324 thoughts turned into a bright starry sky, completely subduing the power of the talisman. Then Su Tong's heart suddenly trembled, and the 324 thoughts shone with bright golden light in an instant. I don't know how long it took, but Su Tong slowly opened his eyes, only to see a strange talisman emerging from the depths of his eyes. Innate talisman, incomparable divine light. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1089. Boss, I'm back. Gao Zhou walked into the room, drank a glass of water, and then said to Su Tong, "It's a good thing you didn't go, you were so bored that I just dozed off." It turned out that since Su Tong received the invitation letter from the gun gods last time, he gave the invitation letter to Gao Zhou and asked him to represent Lo Jinfang in this alliance conference. There is no other way, who should let this guy have more leisure time. After Gu Zibai received the inheritance from Su Tong, he practiced in the arena almost every day. Because of his relationship with Yan Zioqi, he could enjoy special preferential treatment in the arena even if Yan Zioqi was not around. Chang Wogu has recently been concentrating on practicing the transformation of gods and demons. Relying on Yeliki's identity, this guy suddenly experienced the feeling of father's love from Xiaolishan. With the help of the pill Xiaolishan gave him, he became an earth immortal in one leap. Body. Now combined with the transformation of gods and demons, and his proficiency in the art of assassination, there are vague signs of a breakthrough in strength. So during this period of time, Chang Wuhan spent time in the training ground. The training ground is different from the arena. The training ground is more suitable for practicing behind closed doors, while the arena is where you are constantly fighting against other masters. It's hard to say which of the two is better. As for Li Bo, this guy is very busy now. Su Tong will go to see how this guy's goods are going later. Tell me the key points. Su Tong signaled Gao Zhou to pick up key information, and Gao Zhou took out a small cone-shaped object and placed it in front of Su Tong. Su Tong picked it up and took a look. He felt that this thing was extremely exquisitely made, but he couldn't tell what it was for. Head, this is the boundary map. The gods are really bleeding out this time. In order to facilitate this alliance attack, everyone who participates in the meeting will have a boundary map in their hands. As Gao Zhou spoke, he opened the so-called boundary map in front of Su Tong. Suddenly, a beam of light shot out from the top of the cone and appeared in front of Su Tong and Gao Zhou. The function of this boundary map is similar to that of a map. The only difference is that the map is a flat drawing, while the boundary map is a three-dimensional figure. A huge conical beam of light extended from Su Tong's hand to the roof. Looking at it, it was like a beam of light. But if you look closely, you will see that there are shining golden marking signals on this light pillar. If you click on it at random, it will expand quickly, and the time point and background of this layer will appear at the same time. This is the boundary map. Each signal mark on it is a point in time. What happens at this time node can be controlled by the gods and form a separate world. And this is what is called the script world. The so-called door is a crack at the intersection of time. As long as you enter smoothly, you can follow the time tunnel in the middle and travel to any script world. The boundary map itself is an absolutely secret thing. Let alone Gao Zhou, even Buletin Luan cannot get it easily. But this time the gods actually sent out the boundary map directly, although this was not a complete boundary map because it only had vertical marks and no horizontal marks. The complete boundary map has horizontal axis markers, and at the same time, you can check the script world generated in other directions in the world at this time node. Theoretically, by just making slight changes at the time node, you can create several different script worlds at the same time node. After Gao Zhou clicked on it a few times, several time nodes marked in red appeared. These time points are all script worlds occupied by Western camp players. This time the alliance will descend from these script worlds and clear out all Western camp players from these script worlds. Gao Zhou pulled his hands to completely expand this time node. Although it was only one time node, there were 12 script worlds accumulated on it. Most of the script worlds have turned red, and only a small part of them are light blue, which means they are still the original script world. This is the area they assigned to us. Players from other teams will not come here to compete with us. Of course, if some scattered players enter, let's talk about it separately. At least we will not encounter other teams in the 6th Regiment here. It turns out that the so-called Alliance Conference should be said to be a spoils-sharing conference, discussing how to carve up the script world occupied by the Western camp. You must know that after these scenario worlds are occupied by players, they will inevitably undergo large-scale changes, such as planting a certain magic medicine on a large scale, or transforming the entire world, integrating the entire world's resources, etc. Anyway, as long as you occupy it, it will definitely be a hugely profitable deal for the players. Of course, if you do not participate in this alliance, your team and even individual players will be severely punished. Even if there is an industry at the exhibition, the industry will even be shut down. So even if Su Tong doesn't want to participate, he still can't do without the money-making machine of Lo Jinfang. Interesting. Su Tong nodded and said that this could be played for fun, even if it was just a formality. After all, no one would have too little of resources. But what Su Tong wants to know more is what the gods are trying to do. He has always believed in the principle of equal exchange. The gods were so generous to the players this time, so they might want to collect it back from the players in other ways. This operation will be launched in 12 days, which is just enough time for Su Tong and the others to seize the time to improve their strength as much as possible. Let's go and see what's going on with Li Bo. Su Tong stood up and took Gao Zhou to the 3rd floor. He saw that the 3rd floor had been cleared, and there were 18 teleportation beacons on the ground forming a large-scale teleportation array. This is the teleportation array that Master has recently developed, the boundary-breaking teleportation beacon. Of course, the success rate of this thing's transmission is not high, only 10%. Now, these teleportation beacons have to be strengthened to the level of +13 to ensure 100% completion of the transmission. Fortunately, the cost of strengthening these teleportation beacons is not high, and Master's dividends and research funds are completely sufficient. When Su Tong and Gao Zhou stood on it and activated the teleportation, they suddenly felt the figures in front of them tremble, and then they were pulled directly into the new space by a strong pulling feeling. Looking around, I can see endless rice fields in front of me. The golden ears of rice are big and full, like a golden ocean. They ripple with the breeze and make people feel intoxicated. On the edge of the field, I saw a few children playing in the field, and an old man holding a pipe was enjoying the coolness under the grass. This is Li Bo's world. Strictly speaking, it is the script world occupied by Kimen. It turned out that since the last time, Su Tong handed over the super seeds from the last auction to Li Bo. Let Chang Wuju use his privileges as an LV5 certified player to help Li Bo choose a scenario world to use as the resource base for the 7 sects. I want to mention here that the world chosen by Chang Wuju is exactly the world of Li Bo's certified script. The reason why I chose this world is because both of them have entered the script world. Moreover, Li Bo's script world has the highest degree of development. He is familiar with the characters in this script world and has a huge reputation in people's hearts. So here, Li Bo felt like he was back in his hometown. With this script world as his rear, Su Tong sent the Sun Ship and all the soldiers who followed him there. On the one hand, it helps Li Bo stabilize his foundation, and on the other hand, it facilitates their activities. Li Bo's painstaking efforts during this period have already begun to plant super seeds on a large scale in this script world. Thanks to the super seed and the cultivation of Li Bo's natural abilities, during the time when Su Tong disappeared, Li Bo had pushed his reputation in the script world to a peak. He is even a god in this world. Wherever he goes, people live and work in peace and contentment, never pick up lost things on the road, and never close their doors at night. Every household had food to eat, and the world began to move toward unprecedented prosperity. And Li Bo, who had accomplished all this, was worshipped as a god. Every household set up immortality tablets for him, and the emperor personally made him a saint and built a temple for him. The fire of faith I receive every day is as terrifying as the vast ocean. With the blessing of the fire of faith, the power that Li Bo originally inherited from Xiaolishan and Su Lai was completely digested by Li Bo. This guy's fighting power may not be strong enough now, but his potential is amazing. Coupled with this guy's incredible luck, Su Tong feels that it is possible that this guy's achievements will surpass his own in the future. Captain. Li Bo ran over with a smile and saw Ge Zhou and other soldiers behind him. It can be seen that everyone is living a very solid life here. Ge Zhou and others are superseded every day, and their bodies are full of vitality. They all have the realm of great masters. There are even masters with outstanding talents who have stepped into the realm. The realm of entering the Tao. The combat effectiveness of such a unit may not be as good as the players alone, but once they form a battle formation, even the Earth Immortals will have to circle around. Su Tong came here for two other things besides visiting them. Su Tong gave Ge Zhou an idea, which contained a set of battle formations called the 10 Directions Splitting Heaven Formation. This formation was also discovered under the underground palace in Nishan's hometown. Su Tong passed this formation to Ge Zhou. You should practice this formation as soon as possible. It will be of great use later. Promise to complete the mission. Ge Zhou and others stood up one after another and shouted in unison. They were so idle here. When they learned that Su Tong would need them, they all straightened their backs. Everyone exuded eager fighting spirit. After Su Tong told them to practice more during this period, they came to the Sun battleship. This battleship is a good thing. The main purpose of Su Tong's visit this time is to take this battleship back for strengthening and transformation. Once the upgrade is completed, the combat effectiveness of the entire 7 gates will be greatly improved. Hearing Su Tong's thoughts, Li Bo couldn't help but wonder, "Boss, how do you strengthen such a big battleship?" Although the fantasy cube can strengthen all things, it can only be used as prop cards. If it cannot be converted into prop cards, the fantasy cube will not be able to eat such a large battleship. Hey, I can't make the fantasy cube bigger, but I can make this battleship smaller. Su Tong slowly raised his palm, and a dazzling golden light suddenly appeared in his palm. The Buddhist magical power Sumeru seal was activated, and the space in front of him suddenly began to distort, gradually wrapping the battleship and being caught in his palm. Fortunately, Su Tong had learned Buddhist magical powers, otherwise he really wouldn't know how to stuff this battleship into the fantasy Rubik's Cube. After Su Tong asked Gao Zhou and the others to wait here, he returned to Lo Jinfang and began to try to upgrade the Sun battleship. Of course, before upgrading, Su Tong must first carve enough talismans on the Sun battleship to strengthen it. Various talismans were directly imprinted on the battleship by Su Tong using Yanshu. These talismans were naturally not added casually by Su Tong. The talismans only complemented each other and Su Tong only imprinted the talismans on the warship after careful consideration. After he branded all these talismans on the battleship, he saw that the battleship was already covered with a layer of bright light, as if shrouded in a cloud of mist. Su Tong then threw it into the fantasy Rubik's Cube. Ding! Do you want to pay 3,000 script points to enhance this item to level 1? After getting the reminder from the fantasy Rubik's Cube, Su Tong was somewhat relieved. Compared to the 9 Immortals Cauldron, 3,000 script points is not expensive. You must know that the initial strengthening cost of the 9 Immortals Cauldron is a full 40,000 script points. This is why Su Tong has not strengthened the 9 Immortals Cauldron. Strengthen. After Su Tong took a deep breath, he decisively began to strengthen the Sun battleship. When Su Tong strengthened the Sun battleship to add 6 in one breath, he saw that the Sun battleship was already shining brightly, its whole body was like gold, exuding a dazzling light. Su Tong took a look at the expenses and saw that they had already spent a total of 189,000, but the real money was burned next. Su Tong took a deep breath and continued to strengthen. Ding! Do you want to pay 192,000 script points to enhance this item to level 7? Ding. Do you want to pay 384,000 script points to enhance this item to level 8? Ding. Are you? As the level of enhancement increased, Su Tong began to pour a large amount of blessing oil on the battleship to bless it. By the time it was enhanced to level 13, half of Su Tong's original 60 million script points had been evaporated, especially the cost of the 13th enhancement, which had reached an astonishing 1,229. The number of thousands. The strengthened Sun battleship has been completely transformed, bursting with dazzling light. When Su Tong held it in his hand, it seemed to be as dazzling as a small sun. It's a pity that the Sun battleship cannot be included in the props book, otherwise Su Tong really wants to see how amazing the Sun battleship's entry is. 20 million script points were spent to strengthen this battleship to such a terrifying and astonishing level. Thinking about it, Su Tong couldn't help but have the urge to release the battleship to show off. After carefully putting away the battleship, Su Tong continued to take out some other prop cards to strengthen and upgrade them. For example, Time Walker, Force of Formless, Touch of Time, etc. It was not until the vast amount of scripts in Su Tong's hands were consumed that he could walk out of the strengthening room with satisfaction. He swished up to Aimee, who was settling accounts at the counter. Just when he was about to invite Aimee to go upstairs and listen to him recite a poem, someone from outside the door hurriedly walked in. Su Tong took a look and saw that it was Mr. Tai. Great, you are finally back. As soon as Mr. Tai entered the door and saw Su Tong, he immediately rushed forward and took Su Tong's arm and said, "I've been back for a while. I've gone to see you several times, but you've been busy. Why do you have time now?" When Su Tong said this, he still kept his hand on Aimee's water snake waist to fish for oil. Aimee glared at her fiercely before taking back his hand angrily. "It's time, come on, come upstairs with me to talk." Mr. Tai could naturally detect the flirting looks between these two bitches, but he couldn't care less now and pulled Su Tong upstairs. For Mr. Tai to be so anxious, Su Tong thought with his toes that something big must have happened. So I took Mr. Tai to the room on the second floor, motioned Mr. Tai to sit down and spoke slowly. Unexpectedly, Mr. Tai's butt couldn't sit down at all. He stood on the same spot and walked around a few times, as if he was thinking about how to talk. Su Tong looked at him, who was extremely anxious but didn't know what to say. He could only clear his throat and made an excuse. "Is it about the player alliance this time?" Tai opened his mouth, thought for a moment, nodded, and shook his head. "Then the gods are in big trouble," Su Tong continued to say tentatively. This time he finally got to the point. Tai grabbed Su Tong and lowered his voice, "How do you know?" Seeing the anxious look on the stage, Su Tong lowered his voice and roughly recounted what he saw and heard in Kunlun Mountain. Of course, Su Tong selectively concealed the fact that he killed Fairy Lingbo and saved himself. After all, he still didn't know what Tai's position was. It's true." After hearing Su Tong's words, Tai suddenly let out a long breath. "The gods suffered a great loss this time. My old boss was also among them. He was beaten to death by the god of death. Fortunately, the god of death was not destroyed in the end. Kunlun Mountain, it seems that the Queen Mother of the West took action to repel it." Tai did not know the specific matters, and this information was the limit of what he could find out. "You are among the big leagues this time, right? Where are you going to attack?" Tai asked tentatively. Su Tong nodded, took out the boundary map, and pointed to the part of the script world they were responsible for. After taking a closer look, Tai couldn't help but frown. The world of these scripts may not be a good place. After saying that, I saw him turning the world map, as if he was looking for something, until he pointed at the intersection of several script worlds. "Here." Su Tong looked around and saw an inconspicuous black spot there. Tai didn't explain what this place was. He just looked back at Su Tong. After a moment of silence, he cautiously said to Su Tong tentatively. The gods are afraid that they will have a war with the god of death this time. They need enough sacrifices, but how much power can the lives of ordinary creatures contain? No matter how many ants there are, they cannot fill the elephant's belly. Su Tong raised his eyebrows slightly and his expression gradually became serious. You mean? Tai quickly stretched out his hand to signal Su Tong to stop talking, and continued, I'm just making a guess without any real evidence. He then continued, when there were floods in the past, ants would get the news in advance, and then they would move to higher and safer places. Although they are ants, they will have a chance of survival. After that, he quietly sent a teleportation beacon to Su Tong's hand. I remember that when ants move, they will take the food from their nest with them. After saying this, Tai stretched out his arms and looked tired. I won't chat with you anymore. I still have several teams over there waiting to enter the script world. Goodbye. Tai stood up and prepared to leave as he walked out the door. He seemed to remember something and glanced at Su Tong. Oh, by the way, I forgot to congratulate you. Su Tong smiled. I'll treat you to wedding candy another day. Only after Tai left did Su Tong start to think about what Tai had said. Taiwan's words actually made it very clear. Obviously, the gods need more and more powerful sacrifices, but these sacrifices are not easy to find, so players are the best choice. But without the players, managers like Tai would probably end up being sacrificed. After all, the gods would not be kind enough to keep idlers in captivity. At this time, Tai told him the news, and he was obviously ready to run away. Thinking of this, Su Tong glanced at the teleportation sign that Tai gave him, and he probably understood what Tai meant. It seems like this guy must have some way to make everyone hide. That black spot just now might be an important clue. Thinking of this, Su Tong felt a lot more at ease. With their current strength, it was completely wishful thinking to participate in the struggle between the gods and the god of death. Not on the same level at all. So hiding it is also a good choice. In this case, you have to prepare yourself in advance. While Su Tong is preparing for the future. In reality, the figure of the old magic stick has returned to the 5th hospital in L City. Passing through the surrounding pedestrians, we walked all the way to the demolished building in the backyard. This old building had been demolished and was full of ruins and bricks. I don't know if the workers were lazy, but the iron gate that originally led in and out of the building was still standing on the ruins. At this time, the old magic stick slowly stretched out his hand and pushed the iron door open. The moment he stepped into the iron door with one foot, his figure mysteriously disappeared without a trace. Da-da-da-da. The sound of crisp footsteps echoed in the empty corridor. It was not until he came to the last door on the 4th floor that the old magician straightened his clothes and slowly pushed the door open. Buzz. There was a dim light in the room. The youngest had a pipe in his mouth and a book called Approaching Science in his hand. He was reading it with gusto. When he saw the old magician coming back, he said without raising his head, "How is Tai's injury?" "Can't die." The old magic stick said casually, then folded his arms and leaned against the door. That little brat ran away. The youngest was not surprised by this. His luck is not over yet, and his life should not be cut off. It's not time to touch him yet. When you killed prisoners and Ze, weren't they also unlucky? The old magic stick curled his lips. Hearing this, the youngest gradually closed the book in his hand. Don't worry, they can't escape. He is the 3rd key to the secret realm. As he spoke, the youngest sat up, shook the pipe in his hand, narrowed his eyes and spit out a puff of green smoke from his mouth. But this child is very lucky, we cannot let him continue to grow. You're going out. The old magic stick perked up when he saw this, and his eyes suddenly widened. But to his disappointment, the youngest had no intention of going out. Instead, he knocked on the table with his pipe. Along with the knocking sound, the old magic stick heard a burst of sharp laughter from behind him. Looking back, he saw the fat female nurse who didn't know when she appeared in the corridor. "Go, bring him back alive," the youngest's voice came from the room, making the expression on the fat nurse's face become even weirder, her limbs twitching like a stiff puppet. "You have to live, you have to live, he, but little brother's meat is so delicious, what should I do? I'm afraid I can't help it, then it's okay to eat half and keep half, ha ha ha." Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1090. Sangxian Pharmacy is offering a huge reward. A drug combination package worth 10,000 yuan. Now it only costs 3,000 script points. It's a big sale at a loss. Don't miss it if you pass by, various power-up cards are on sale. Super discounts, various consumable props, all good things for home travel, killing and stealing. Since the Alliance conference, the exhibition area has begun to set off a wave of crazy consumption. All players are frantically buying all the supplies they can. Everyone knows that this alliance will inevitably lead to a super melee between players in major regions. Once they occupy the script world of local players, all the wealth and resources in this script world will become their spoils. And if you kill the opponent player, all the prop cards of the opponent player will belong to the winner. Whether they are certified players or ordinary players, they can jump into this battle. As long as they win once, the loot gained is enough to be worth the gains in the script world several times. This time, in order to facilitate players to attack at the same time, the gods deliberately temporarily merged the low-level exhibition area and the high-level exhibition area. At the same time, a huge script transmission array was built in the center of the exhibition. It was a huge stone door, 300 meters high and 200 meters wide. It is said that the managers of the 4 script libraries in the Huaxia district will personally come and jointly open this door, which will allow thousands of players to enter each script world at the same time and directly attack the Western camp in an all-round way. While the players were watching the portal being erected, they were also discussing the matter about this all-out attack. The shark is really bleeding this time. As long as you join the group, you will be given a super gift package immediately, 2 prop cards enhanced to add 9, medicine, and 30,000 script points. Demon's side isn't bad either. It seems that every ordinary team will be led by 2 certified players, and a whole set of reward mechanisms have been issued. We ordinary players don't have to worry about being used as cannon fodder. Walking on the streets of the exhibition, there were discussions from players everywhere. The 6 major teams took the lead and began to expand the team on a large scale. Even ordinary players were included. As long as you join these teams, you will immediately get a big gift package. Moreover, the 6th Regiment also specifically guarantees that even ordinary players can receive 10% of the team's loot as a reward. As for Lojinfang, it is even more crowded, with people queuing up from Lojinfang all the way to East Street. After all, strengthening is the fastest way to improve strength, and it is also the most powerful confidence for the 6th Regiment Alliance Army. It is precisely because of the appearance of power-up item cards on their side that players in the Chinese region have the confidence to sweep away players from other regions. So much so that Su Tong and the others' income and turnover during this period showed a geometric doubling rate and began to increase. Su Tong calculated that before the Alliance Army entered this time, their team once again carried out a wave of dividends. It was estimated that each person could receive at least nearly 200 million script points. When the time comes, I can fill the big money-burning hole of the 9 Immortals cauldron. This does not include the income from teleportation beacons. There are too many people buying teleportation beacons during this period. So much so that the price of teleportation beacons is soaring crazily. Especially the boundary-breaking beacon. This kind of thing is an extremely valuable material for the Alliance Army this time. It can rival the existence of the Western teleportation array and has huge strategic significance. The 6th Regiment spent a lot of money to acquire it, so Master had to work overtime day and night. Based on this income alone, Master's ability to attract money is not even much worse than Lo Jinfang. During this period, Su Tong was not idle, purchasing various medicines in large quantities, and then tried to refine elixirs. Various high-grade recovery medicines and magical medicines for improving cultivation allowed Su Tong to stay by the fairy furnace almost every day. Su Tong took one of the top-quality elixirs he refined last time, and gave 4 to Gao Zhou and the others. The remaining 3 were given to Dia, Sun Li, and 5 furry little guys. After taking this pill, he can greatly improve his cultivation. Su Tong's own thoughts finally achieved a breakthrough, reaching the number of 216 thoughts. If he continues to use the plan for a rainy day, his thoughts will be able to break through to at least 500, and by then his strength will be horribly improved. Coupled with his newly learned killing move Incompetent Divine Light, even if he faced 3 generations of gods, Su Tong was 30% sure of killing the opponent. If coupled with the cooperation of Gao Zhou and others, the probability of success will at least double. If you add the 9 Immortals Cauldron and the Sun God ship, your success rate will be even higher. The preparation time of more than 10 days almost flies by in the blink of an eye for the players, and they see the time getting closer and closer. After Su Tong and the others made the last dividend distribution, they decisively closed Lo Jinfang, which made the players behind them all complain again. Su Tong even received more than 10 reports in a row, asking him to reopen Lo Jinfang. Unfortunately, how could Su Tong take these reports to heart? He was already ready to run away with people at any time. After the dividends were distributed, Su Tong began to strengthen the 9 Immortals Cauldron. After burning 356.43 million in funds, Su Tong finally smashed the 9 Immortals Cauldron to the level of AD 13. You know, even for a super team like the Gunslingers, the team's reserve fund in its heyday was only 300 million. Now even 100 million may not be available. As for other teams, they probably cannot afford such a huge sum of money. It is no exaggeration to say that this money is enough for Su Tong to form a super team that is not weaker than the Gunslingers. In order to raise this money, everyone only received a small part of the last dividend, and all the remaining funds were spent on the 9 Immortals Cauldron. Master even gave all of his research and development funds to Su Tong. Such a huge amount of money disappeared completely like this, but after actually seeing the entry on the 9 Immortals Cauldron, Su Tong still felt that it was worth it. He took out the 9 Immortals Cauldron and put it in his hand. The huge hole in the belly of the cauldron was gradually repaired through strengthening, and it was completely intact. The simple little cauldron ripples with strange fluctuations, and ancient patterns are carved on it, as if there are all things in it. Every texture seems to be made naturally, with the texture of a great road, which is broad, profound, and mysterious. The 9 Immortals stand tall on the tripod, with strange expressions and different postures. When combined together, they seem to be a complete set of cultivation methods. As for the inside of the tripod, there are incomprehensible laws and patterns, intertwined into the supreme Tao. Su Tong looked at the small cauldron carefully. It's more of a repair than a reinforcement. This tripod was pierced for some unknown reason, but now that it has been strengthened, the hole in the belly of the tripod has been completely repaired, returning it to its heyday appearance. This once again confirmed Su Tong's inner thoughts. The core idea of the fantasy Rubik's Cube is not to turn waste into treasure, but a kind of perfection. Completing the regrets of all things is the meaning of the fantasy Rubik's Cube. Su Tong threw the 9 Immortals Cauldron into the prop book. He looked at the entry on the 9 Immortals Cauldron. 9 Immortals Cauldron AD 13. Qingcheng Mountain is the most precious treasure in the mountains, the luck of a religion, and the peace of mountains and rivers. Passive Skill 1, 9 Immortals Inheritance. Those who repair this treasure can obtain the magic inherited by the 9 Immortals and the 9 Immortals magic to transform into gods. Those who fully inherit the 9 Immortals can be exempted from all consumption. Active Skill 1, One tripod holds the world together. It consumes 100 script points. After activation, the immortal cauldron can be summoned to forcibly suppress the opponent's luck. During the duration of the skill, script points will be consumed again every 3 minutes. Cooling time, 30 minutes. Note, who dares to win the world? Active skill 2, 9 immortals refining formation. Spend 1000 script points to summon the 9 immortals and activate the 9 immortals refining formation. Cooling time, 3 hours. Note, I have a period of time where I can refine immortality, gods, and heaven. Active skill 3, 9 immortals refining technique. The holder will obtain the 9 immortals refining technique. The 9 immortals cauldron destroyed by this technique can stimulate the full power of the 9 immortals cauldron, causing the power of the 9 immortals refining array to quickly reach its peak, and the 9 immortals cauldron's luck suppressing effect will be enhanced by 3 times. Note, this is an act against the will of heaven. The only question is whether you win or lose. If your body and mind die, you will transform into the 9 immortal cauldron. Looking at the contents of the entry further confirmed Su Tong's guess about the fantasy Rubik's Cube. After the 9 immortals cauldron was completed, not only did the cooling time change from the original long 49 days to 3 hours, but even the original continuous consumption disappeared, and it only took 1000 script points to activate. If you fully master the inheritance of the 9 immortals, you won't even waste the script points. This is the real 9 immortals cauldron. Su Tong took a deep breath and immediately felt that the 350 million was worth it. With this great killing weapon, he is not weak at all when facing the 3 generations of gods. Early the next morning, all members of Su Tong's team gathered at Lo Jinfang. This time it's not just Ame, but Master too. Su Tong specifically terminated the employment relationship between Master and Lo Jinfang and became a team member again. At the same time, the same goes for Amoda, Fasai, and Jixiang, all of which were included in the hall by Su Tong. The fantasy Rubik's Cube embedded in Lejun's square was taken out by Su Tong. Since they were preparing to run away, Su Tong had to prepare for the worst. As long as the fantasy Rubik's Cube was in hand, they would not have to worry about future reinforcements wherever they went. When all the team members arrived, Su Tong took a deep breath and waved his hand, "Let's go." When everyone arrived at the exhibition center, it looked like a street during the New Year, and it was completely dark. Everyone was shocked. They have been players for so long and have never seen so many players. My dear, there are so many people. Seeing the number of players in the square, Su Tong and the others felt numb. But at this time, Su Tong noticed that many players in the sky were using flying paper to float in mid-air. With a thought in his heart, he simply released the sun battleship. Suddenly a battleship flashing with golden light appeared out of the sky, instantly attracting everyone's attention. Under the radiance like the sun, the battleship was shining with mysterious runes and halos, which was really too dazzling. On the battleship, Ji Izhou and others were already waiting with spears in hand. After Su Tong and the others boarded the battleship quickly rose into the air, attracting countless shocked and envious looks from everyone. Many people almost even stared. When they came out, even the gun god Buelyuan from a distance was shocked by this scene. Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1091. The battleship appeared out of thin air, astonishing everyone. Even the people in the Gunsling regiment in the distance were amazed by this battleship. Everyone looked at the battleship curiously, wondering which team could possess such a big deal. "Boss, are we too high profile?" Li Bo stood on the deck, looking at the dark crowd of players below, and couldn't help but turn around and whisper. "This high profile is what I want." I saw Su Tong walking onto the deck, standing at the highest point, taking off his disguise and revealing his true appearance. At this point, I would be sorry for myself if I didn't keep a high profile. Seeing Su Tong dispersing his disguise, the rest of the team followed suit and dispelled their disguises. Losing the pretense is not only a high profile, but also confidence in one's own strength. Su Tong's high profile naturally attracted the attention of many people, but most people did not know Su Tong and others, so they were inevitably talking about it. At this moment, a black shadow stepped on a flying sword and came through the air. Before the black shadow could approach the Sun battleship, Ji Izhou and others had already raised their spears. "Wait a minute, this person is my friend." Su Tong waved his hand at this moment, signaling Ji Izhou and others not to take action. Only after the black shadow fell on the deck of the battleship did he see the other party taking off his disguise and revealing his true face. It was no one else. "It's Yang Zixuan. Haven't seen you for a long time." Su Tong stepped forward and took a look at this guy. He was at the peak of his enlightenment and was already infinitely close to the strength of an Earth immortal. "You guys are so flamboyant." When Yang Zixuan stepped forward, he realized that he couldn't see Su Tong's depth at all. He couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. He didn't expect Su Tong's progress to be so rapid. "I remember that when I first met this kid, his strength was only considered average among ordinary players. But now this guy's strength has bottomed out." It wasn't just him. Yang Zixuan looked around and noticed that the people around Su Tong were all incredibly powerful. Especially Gu Zibai, who was standing aside, looked like the sun, with so much energy that it could reach the sky. This terrifying aura was enough to become an elite core member of those super teams. "How about it? My team is pretty good." Su Tong carelessly hung his elbow on Yang Zixuan's shoulder and said with a wicked smile, "It's a pity that you didn't become my team member, otherwise you might be better than them all." Yang Zixuan rolled his eyes. "Come on, I believe you are the only one who has ghosts." Yang Zixuan lowered his voice and said, "Can you let me see the area you are attacking this time?" Su Tong was not ambiguous and directly showed Yang Zixuan the boundary map. After reading it, Yang Zixuan shook his head with regret. "It's a pity that we are too far apart, otherwise we can fight together." But after Yang Zixuan looked at it carefully, he frowned. "Strange, why are you here? Is there something wrong?" Su Tong frowned slightly and immediately smelled something wrong in Yang Zixuan's words. Yang Zixuan pointed to several other time nodes above. "The Spear God group is here, Demon, Momin, Shark, Fan Mai Mountain, and Baidu are here. You are almost sandwiched in the middle." When he said this, Yang Zixuan looked at Su Tong with a strange face. "Don't you think you are sandwiched in the middle of the 6 regiments?" It was okay if Yang Zixuan didn't say it. When he mentioned it like this, Su Tong was startled. After confirming it with Yang Zixuan again and again, Su Tong turned back and looked at Gao Zhou. Suddenly Gao Zhou's face turned red. After all, he was the one who attended the last meeting on behalf of the 7 gates. When everyone was dividing the direction of attack, Gao Zhou did not see such an important thing. This is absolutely a huge mistake. However, Su Tong calmed down quickly and said casually, "Oh, it's a coincidence. Hee, we happen to have a good relationship with the 6th Regiment, so we can take care of each other." Yang Zixuan didn't say anything after hearing this. After briefly saying a few words to Su Tong, the two said goodbye. Before leaving, Su Tong did not forget to hand some enhanced elixirs to Yang Zixuan, and secretly told him that as long as he killed the players, he would be fine. As for the other missions of the gods, don't participate if you can. Although Yang Zixuan didn't know the reason, he still nodded to indicate that he had taken note of it. "Head, this is my fault. When the division was made, I only remember a few surrounding teams, and they seemed to be ordinary teams." After Yang Zixuan left, Gao Zhou walked to Su Tong with a blushing face. Su Tong patted him on the shoulder. "It's not your fault. Even if I go, the result will be the same. If the 6th Regiment wants to hide themselves, they only need to divide their subordinate teams here and occupy their positions during the division. No one can see the fishiness in it." But the more the 6th Regiment behaved like this, the more wary Su Tong naturally became, thinking, is it because I killed Ferry Lingbo? While Su Tong was thinking, someone else boarded the Sun battleship. Su Tong took a look and saw that it was Blind Man Kong. Oh my, you are so rich, you even have such things, I'm so jealous of you. Blind Man Kong all went up to the deck and looked at the battleship in front of him, and couldn't help but marvel. It's a pity that I was assigned to the Gunsling Regiment to help, otherwise I would have followed you and enjoyed the blessings no matter what. Blind Man Kong said with a sigh. Su Tong knew that Blind Man Kong was definitely not here to visit his Sun battleship, so he smiled and said, Buletin Luen is so strong, and he still needs your help? So Yan Zioki is also among them. Hey, there's nothing the higher UPS can do. After saying that, Blind Man Kong glanced around sideways, and finally looked at Su Tong. Come on, I won't waste time here anymore. I don't know if we can meet again when we go, so I'll give you these 8 words. Blind Man Kong said, took Su Tong's hand, wrote 8 words on it, and walked off the Sun battleship without looking back. Only after Kong Xiaozi stepped off the boat, Su Tong looked at his palms with confusion on his face. 8 characters, there is no ladder on the dangerous road, and the door to life is to the left. As a descendant of General Midas Master Kong, divination is his old profession. Obviously these 8 words are a prophecy he left to Su Tong. Su Tong could still understand the first 4 words. He never thought that he would have a smooth journey, but what does it mean to be born to the left? When Su Tong was confused, a long and deep horn sound came, interrupting Su Tong's thoughts. Look, the door is open. Along with everyone's exclamations, the door in front of them slowly opened. Buzz, kick kick kick. The huge stone door is carved with statues of countless gods. The moment the door is opened, these gods seem to be resurrected, covered with a faint divine glow in the golden light. The door was opened little by little, and behind the door, a huge space-time tunnel appeared. Looking around, you can see many scenes of the script world through these time and space tunnels. There are even script worlds that everyone is familiar with and have even experienced. However, as soon as the door was opened, all the players were surprised to find that their disguises had disappeared. Without the disguise, all the players suddenly felt very uncomfortable. Without the disguise, it felt like they had lost some kind of protection, just standing naked in the crowd. How is this going? A group of players below were watching each other, not knowing what was happening. It's the reason for this portal. May walked to the deck and explained to Su Tong, the time and space tunnel itself has the ability to blur the power of the gods, so it needs the assistance of the script library. Now they have created with such a large portal, the power of time and space pouring out will inevitably blur all the original rules and power of the exhibition. May is indeed a member of the system, and she can tell the reason at a glance. Headmaster, it's him. At this time, Ya suddenly became excited. He stared at the crowd below with strong murderous intent in his eyes. Su Tong took a look and saw a familiar-looking man among the crowd below standing looking around. Su Tong did not recognize this person, but he had seen his photo. Zhang Zhenghao. The name of this person appeared in Su Tong's mind, and he felt relieved immediately. No wonder Ya was so excited, it turned out that he had met his enemy. When he was in the Northeast 5 Immortals Hall, the old immortal of the Hu family asked Su Tong to help kill someone, and that person was Zhang Zhenghao. This guy betrayed his trust and plotted against his old immortal. He not only forcibly detained the 2 old immortals of Wuxian Hall, but also took away a vital thing from Wuxian Hall. Su Tong has never forgotten this person. After all, this is a cause and effect between him and Wuxiantang, but he has never encountered any news about this person. I didn't expect to meet him here. May, you just said that the rules in the exhibition have disappeared, right? May knew what Su Tong meant and nodded. Unless he runs outside, he will not be protected by the exhibition in this area. After hearing Amei's confirmed answer, Su Tong raised his brows slightly. Naturally, he wouldn't wait any longer. Those who have a grudge will seek revenge, and those who have an injustice will avenge an injustice. He immediately jumped up, jumped off the battleship, and rushed straight over Zhang Zhengao's head. Zhang Zhengao had been feeling uneasy for a while. He suddenly heard people's exclamations and looked up. He saw Su Tong rushing towards him. There were snake-like vertical pupils in his eyes. When he saw the Tang Cow behind Su Tong and the nine-tailed fox in the Tang Cow, his heart suddenly skipped a beat. "Captain, save me." A great sense of crisis struck, and Zhang Zhengao realized that this must be the master invited by Wu Xiantang to kill him. He immediately screamed and ran behind him without looking back. But how could Su Tong let the guy run away? He stretched out his hand to call out Mo Ran. With a slash of his sword, the time around him suddenly froze. Zhang Zhengao, who was running wildly, suddenly felt the changes in the time around him. The look on his face changed drastically. He formed seals with his hands, and then the body actually wanted to turn into a big snake to break free from the changes in time. But he underestimated Su Tong too much. The moment he formed the seal, Su Tong had already rushed out of the future, and appeared next to him the next moment. The ink-dyed sword drew a black and white world in the air, and the next second it was Zhang Zhengao flew away. Puff! The moment the blood tore from Zhang Zhengao's chest, Ya was seen flying out of the hall. The nine tails swayed and her sharp claws directly grabbed Zhang Zhengao's head, preparing to perform a craniotomy on him. Stop! At this moment, a roar came out, and a big hand slapped Ya behind the back. I saw the terrifying evil energy surging on the person who did it, like a huge black rainbow. Wherever he went, the surrounding void was torn open, and in the blink of an eye, he appeared behind Ya. He is the deputy leader of the Blood Shark group and one of the 8 evil villains, Tyrant Zhang. But just when Zhang Tyrant's hand was about to touch Ya, an exclamation came from Zhang Tyrant's ear: "Quickly retreat." Hearing the shouts of his captain, Zhang Tyrant became alert. Looking back, he realized that Su Tong Gren had appeared beside him and stepped down on his head with one foot. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shuigan Xiao. Chapter 1092. When Zhang Tyrant realized that something was wrong, it was too late to dodge. He quickly activated the prop card. After a bright light flashed on his body, his figure began to blur. Then Su Tong stepped on it, and it turned out that it was empty. Just because Zhang Tyrant hid like this, his teammate Zhang Zhengao was the unlucky one. Zhang Zhengao saw Ya coming to kill him. At the critical moment, 2 old immortals, Bai Xian and Lu Xian, appeared behind him. These 2 old immortals who had practiced Taoism for thousands of years injected a large amount of demonic energy into Zhang Zhengao's body. Then 2 waves of demonic energy erupted from Zhang Zhengao's body, causing a gray area to form around him. Not good. Many players were unable to dodge and were swallowed up by this gray area. For a moment, their souls were pulled out of their bodies and they were unable to control their bodies. All this happened so quickly that everyone was caught off guard. But Ya didn't care, her 9 tails were fluttering behind her, and her figure was like a fairy. In everyone's surprised eyes, Ya's whole body was shrouded in a dazzling divine light, and she flew down in an instant, waving her sharp claws on her fingertips, and then it caused the surrounding void to shatter like a mirror. And Zhang Zhengao's body gradually became dislocated in this fragmented void. It's time to repay the debt you owe to the 5 Immortals Hall. I saw Ya's fingers gently moving, and strange ripples rippled in the void. When the ripples penetrated Zhang Zhengao's body, his soul further began to fall apart. Captain, save me. Zhang Zhenghao screamed and wanted to ask the leader Zhang Tyrant to save him. The fox fairy in front of him was already a demon fairy. Not only was his strength far superior to him, but he also practiced the secret method inheritance of the five immortals hall. He couldn't resist it now. He can only ask Tyrant Zhang for help. However, just when Zhang Tyrant was about to take action, a biting cold chill suddenly appeared all over his body, as if a sword had been placed on his neck. As long as he dared to move, his body and head would be separated in the next second. The source of this chill was the young man standing in front of him holding a long sword. The other person just holding the sword and standing in front of him made Tyrant Zhang feel like he had fallen into an abyss. For a moment, let alone helping to save people, he didn't even dare to move a finger. In a moment, big beads of sweat were already dripping from his forehead. Everyone couldn't help but whisper secretly when they saw this scene. As the saying goes, it's better to meet two gods than evil people. The 8 great evils, such as Meng Changsheng and his ilk, are all cruel and monstrous. Tyrant Zhang calls himself a tyrant. You can imagine what kind of character this person is. However, at this moment, Tyrant Zhang was stared at by this young man, but he did not even dare to move. Ah! At this time, Zhang Zhenghao let out a miserable cry, and his soul was pulled out of his body by Dia. With a gentle squeeze of Dia's fingers, his soul was crushed between her slender fingers. Plop! Zhang Zhenghao, who had lost his soul, fell to the ground weakly. Su Tong stepped forward, stretched out his hand, and took the 2 immortals on Zhang Zhenghao's body into his hands, and threw them into the hall. Then he directly picked up Zhang Zhenghao's prop book and carded the props inside. All the script parts were shaken out. Dia rummaged around inside and finally found a stone statue. This stone statue was an important lost treasure of the 5 immortals hall. The great revenge has been avenged, and the stone in Dia's heart has finally fallen to the ground. Su Tong signaled her to go back to the hall first and talk about the rest later. As for the other prop cards on the ground, Su Tong took one look and immediately lost interest. Just as he was about to leave, someone behind him called Su Tong coldly. "Isn't it too much for your excellency to kill people in public and leave like this?" The speaker is not Tyrant Zhang, but the leader of the Blood Shark group, Blood Shark. Both Zhang Tyrant and Zhang Zhenghao were members of the Blood Sharks. If he was killed in public like this, it would inevitably chill everyone if he didn't even dare to fart. But Su Tong just glanced at him, turned around and spat towards Leng on the ground. Hiss. When everyone saw this, the expressions on their faces suddenly changed. Many people were even more confused. They didn't expect that Su Tong would be so frivolous. Blood Shark was the leader of the 6th Regiment. If Buelyuan hadn't been suppressing him, he would have been there long ago. The title of conferred god has been completed. But he didn't expect him to come forward in person, but Su Tong didn't even show any good face. Not only did he not give him a good face, Su Tong even glanced at Susha himself with contempt. "I have a grudge against this boy. It's just revenge. I still need to say hello to you. Who do you think you are?" Su Tong's response could be said to be extremely arrogant, and he did not take Blood Shark seriously at all. He even raised his head and looked in the direction of Buletinluan, the gun god Tuan in the distance. "Revenge for those who have a grudge, and revenge for those who have an injustice. I can never tolerate sand in my eyes." Everyone was in an uproar. Although Su Tong didn't name him, he was clearly talking about Buelyuan. His words were just a warning to Buelyuan. This time, their team was inexplicably stuck among the 6th Regiment. Su Tong would not believe it if there were no problems inside. It was precisely because of this that Su Tong would not have a good look at the Blood Sharks. In his eyes, the 6 groups were clearly colluding to deceive their Lo Jinfang. This time even the Blood Shark's face became ugly. But when he saw Su Tong being so arrogant and even calling Buelyuan directly, he couldn't help but turn his head and look in Buelyuan's direction suspiciously. This guy. Meng Changshen's face darkened next to Buelyuan. Just when he was about to step forward, he was stopped by Buelyuan. Don't move, you are no match for him. Buelyuan's words were very soft, but many people could hear them clearly. Meng Changshen's expression even changed slightly. There was nothing wrong with what Buelyuan said, but when he heard these words, he felt extremely distorted. He couldn't help but said a little unconvinced, I'm not your opponent, but you. Buelyuan's lips moved slightly, and he just said in the team channel, 4 or 6 points. Although Buelyuan didn't say who was 4th and who was 6th, it was possible that Buelyuan said such words, which shocked both Meng Changshen and other members of the Spear God Regiment. You need to know how strong Buelyuan's fighting power is, especially after strengthening the props. Buelyuan's strength is almost several times that of before. 3 god-level masters in the West couldn't even last 7 rounds in his hands and ended up dead. The result of an injury. But now Buletin actually said that the outcome between him and this person would be 40-60 points. As soon as these words came out, Meng Changshen's unhappiness with Su Tong disappeared in an instant. He stared at Su Tong with his eyes fixed on him, and his heart was full of mixed emotions. Then Buelyuan didn't even look at Su Tong, turned around and led the team towards the open door in front of them. The indifferent gaze seemed not to take Su Tong into consideration at all. This scene seems natural to ordinary people. How could the giant pay attention to the ant's provocation? Seeing that Buelyuan had begun to lead people into the time tunnel, the blood shark took a step forward with a sinister expression on his face, the murderous aura on his body getting heavier and heavier. Everyone, the teleportation has started, enter now. Seeing that these two people were about to fight if they had a disagreement, a script library manager sitting next to the gate couldn't stand it anymore. If they really let them fight here, no one knows how many people here would be affected. They spent a lot of money. The portal built with so much money was not just for them to fight in the nest. Our Blood Shark group will remember this account. The Blood Shark didn't know that now was not the time to take action. He was just suffering from the lack of a step. When he saw a manager coming to the rescue, he left a harsh word and hurriedly led the team to enter the portal one after another. When everyone saw this, they couldn't help but look at each other, and when they looked at Su Tong, their eyes suddenly became in awe. Su Tong couldn't help but sneered when he saw that the blood shark was running very fast, turned around and returned to the Sun battleship, then waved his hand, "Let's go." The battleship slowly entered the gate. As the ship gradually disappeared inside the gate, Su Tong couldn't help but look at the stage sitting in the corner. The two looked at each other and exchanged a look with each other calmly. The figures of Su Tong and others finally disappeared in front of everyone. When the Sun battleship entered the time tunnel, Su Tong took out the boundary map, and saw a green light flashing from the boundary map, guiding the Sun battleship forward slowly along the time tunnel. Are these script worlds? Li Bo lay on the railing at the edge of the deck, looking curiously at the scenes that flashed around him. Among them, he actually saw a very familiar scene. It was the script world that Su Tong and he entered for the first time. That world was full of devastation. The original Paperman village was now in ruins. Only a few houses remained, but they were also covered with weeds. Li Bo, Chang Wuju, and Gu Zibai also discovered many familiar backgrounds. Hey, what do these red script worlds mean? At this time, Master stood aside and pointed at the red script world, and asked. Abnormal world. Aimei explained, the so-called script world is actually a period of time that the gods extract alone, but occasionally there will be some time when abnormalities occur, such as the sudden outbreak of situations that are completely different from reality, such as nuclear bombs, doomsday, zombies, etc. These worlds suddenly mutate due to unknown reasons. The number is very small, but there are still some. Oh, I'm a zombie, we have actually encountered one. Gao Zhou scratched his head and remembered the script world where he and Su Tong met. While everyone was talking, Su Tong had a thought that escaped into the hall. The hall was very lively at the moment. Amoda, Jixiang, and Fasai were all there, as well as Sun Li, Dia, and the 5 black balls. In addition, the 2,000-year-old immortals Bai Xian and Lucien were also there at this moment, so that the entrance of the hall became a little strange for the first time. Crowded. Su Tong first appeased Bai Xian and Lucien. Although they have practiced for thousands of years, their strength is not very high. After thousands of years of practice, their strength is only equivalent to the state of enlightenment. Compared to demons like Daya, they are still far behind. We can't blame them, it's just because their practice relies too much on the incense of faith and they don't have enough resources. Far from being as resource-rich as Daya. Especially after entering the age of ending Dharma, their strength not only did not improve, but also declined significantly due to the decline of incense and the changes in the world. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been forcibly detained by a guy like Zhang Zhenghao. At this time, Daya took out the statue that he had snatched from Zhang Zhenghao and handed it to Su Tong. This object is an extremely important treasure in the 5 Immortals Hall. Su Tong took it in his hand and looked at it carefully, and found that the statue was of a woman. Although the object had been aged for a long time and the color on the statue had long faded, the woman's beautiful style could still be seen. But other than that, this item is just a relatively ordinary prop card. At least in Su Tong's eyes, this prop card is not even considered the best. He didn't understand why the 5 Immortals Hall valued the statue so much. After careful study, Su Tong couldn't figure out the secret, which made Su Tong look puzzled. What is so extraordinary about this thing that makes it worth the 5 Immortals Hall's initial war to get it back? Su Tong asked Bai and Lu, 2 old immortals. Who knew that the 2 of them didn't know about this problem? Lucien shook his body and explained in a low voice, this thing was left by the first-generation master of the 5 Immortals Hall. It is said that there was no 5 Immortals Hall at that time. We old immortals are not called immortals. We are just in the mountains and wilderness some of our spiritual objects. It is said that this statue is the source of our spiritual objects. Lucien told what he knew, but he didn't know many details. It was not that he deliberately concealed it, but that he really didn't know. Bai Xian also told some rumors. My great-grandmother said that this statue is a fairy who is buried in Chenbei Mountain. You can find her only by holding the statue. After Su Tong heard the conversation between Bai Xian and Lucien, he also felt strange. He looked at the statue in his hand and suddenly thought of something. Golden light appeared in his eyes, Buddha Eye was activated, and then he found a key in the stone statue. This key looks very delicate, it should be used to open some important mechanism. But I'm afraid I won't be able to use it. Forget it, just leave this thing to someone who is destined for you. Su Tong thought about exiting the hall, walked to the edge of the deck, and looked at the script world in front of him. For a moment, when he saw that the background of the script world was in the northeast, Su Tong casually threw the stone statue away. I have no intention of returning to the real world, and naturally I can't return this thing to the 5 Immortals Hall. What's more, the 5 Immortals Hall has declined. Maybe it won't be long before the profession of horse racing will completely disappear. Even if I return this thing, it will to them, it was just a useless stone statue. As the saying goes, it's all about the world. Since this thing is a key, throwing it into the script world is its true destination. When the stone statue smashed into the script world, it seemed to have received a huge impact. Then the stone statue on the outside exploded, and the key flew into the script world. After doing this, Su Tong felt a sense of lightness in his body, which was the reason why the cause and effect between himself and Wu Xiantang was resolved. Maybe in the future, new players will accidentally enter the script world, get the key, and go to Chenbei Mountain to see what's going on. The Sun battleship continued to move forward, and Su Tong and the others occasionally saw the figures of some other players, but these players were following the boundary maps in their hands one after another, and successfully entered the script world. Su Tong did not waste time. Taking advantage of his free time, he went to the quiet room of the battleship and summoned the 9 Immortals Cauldron. I saw that the 9 Immortals on the 9 Immortals Cauldron had different postures. Each Immortal has a strange mark on his finger, which is the so-called inheritance of the 9 Immortals. Considering that the 9 Immortals Cauldron is his biggest killer weapon in the future, Su Tong feels that no matter what the inheritance of the 9 Immortals is, he must be proficient in it to be the best. So I separated my thoughts and tried to escape into the 9 Immortals Cauldron to feel the inheritance. When Su Tong's thoughts touched the 9 Immortals Cauldron, the 9 Immortals Cauldron seemed to produce a huge gravitational force, sucking Su Tong's thoughts into it. At the same time, the first thought appeared in Su Tong's mind. The figure of the immortal. I want to seal the sky and pick up the stars with my hands. The immortal seemed to be drunk, stumbling, waving his sleeves, and constantly forming strange seals. Seeing this, Su Tong couldn't help but follow the immortal's movements. Picking the stars with both hands, sealing the sky to cover the sun and moon. As Su Tong's thoughts flashed and the yin and yang qi circulated, brilliant starlight suddenly appeared around Su Tong. Take it. Then Su Tong's pupils suddenly opened, and he alternated his hands to form magic seals, which actually caused the void to tremble. What a domineering fairy! Su Tong couldn't help but secretly marveled that the magic that the immortal said, thought, and created actually had the ability to plunder all things. This is very similar to Yan Shu's method of plundering the veins of all things, but there is a big difference between the two. This word-grabbing seal is aimed at the magic of the gods. It is an immortal method specially developed for the gods of the gods. It can directly plunder the opponent's magical power and turn it into one's own use. Well, to put it simply, it's a bit like the unique skills of the Murong family in Gasu in Jin Yang's novels. This method alone can be called heaven-defying. Not to mention that there are 9 kinds of immortal magic behind it. At this time, Su Tong probably had a deeper understanding of the 9 Immortals Cauldron. The 9 Immortals above are probably all immortals who are dissatisfied with the gods in the heavens. They know that it is difficult for them to compete with the gods with their own power, so they simply pass down the 9 Immortals Cauldron from generation to generation. Each generation of immortals retains their own imprint and immortal magic on the 9 Immortals Cauldron. After 9 generations of inheritance, they finally hold the cauldron to carry the sky. Just from the big hole in the broken 9 Immortals Cauldron, Su Tong probably guessed that the result might not be satisfactory. It doesn't matter. If you haven't done it, I will help you do it. I will take over the inheritance of the 9 Immortals Cauldron. Su Tong secretly made up his mind that if he failed, he would imprint his legacy on the 9 Immortals Cauldron and turn the 9 Immortals Cauldron into a 10 Immortals Cauldron. Just as he was thinking about it, Su Tong heard Gao Zhou shouting in the team channel, "Boss, we are here." Su Tong walked out of the room and took a look, only to see that guided by a green beam of light, the Sun battleship was slowly entering a script world. The huge battleship penetrated the barrier and gradually descended into the script world. Ding! Warning, warning, illegal intrusion. At this time, the sound of the prop booklet sounded in everyone's ears. Warning, if you illegally invade the exclusive scenario world of individual players, you will be strongly rejected by the scenario world. Within 3 minutes, you will not be able to use the prop card skills. The exclusive players of this scenario world will know all your traces and activate defense privileges. A series of warning sounds came, making everyone stunned. Fortunately, Ame explained to everyone, "Don't worry, this is a normal phenomenon. The so-called defense privileges are actually just some special abilities with restrictions on their use. It poses no threat to us. The so-called defense privileges are nothing more than an increase in player attributes, and players can quickly invite other players into the script world for defensive resistance. After all, this is already the exclusive world of other players, and these privileges are normal operations. As for the 3-minute punishment mechanism, there is no need to worry. They are protected by the Sun battleship, and it is not easy for the opponent to attack them. What's more, in 3 minutes, the other party may not have been able to summon enough helpers. The world seems to be doing pretty well. Su Tong had already walked out of the quiet room, looking around, and found that there were many churches in the script world, and there were actually many people with strong auras sitting in these churches. If my guess is correct, the player who took over here should have a very good relationship with the church. In fact, Su Tong didn't want to kill people and send sacrifices to the gods. If he really wanted to say that, it would be to visit and travel while running away. However, although Su Tong's idea is good, the other party obviously will not understand it. Players in the Chinese region are sweeping away the script worlds of Western and other players on a large scale. I am afraid that someone has already passed it on to Western players through real-life channels. So before the 3-minute punishment time was over, Su Tong found that many players had quickly gathered and rushed towards them. Old Bai. Su Tong called Gu Zibai and asked him to go play with these Western players, but specifically asked Gu Zibai not to kill anyone as much as possible. In fact, it would be more appropriate for Gao Zhou to go to such a group fight, but once Gao Zhou's ability is activated, the residents here may also suffer. The most important thing is that Su Tong wants to see if he can use his identity to draw on the power of the Western Church. After all, the 6th Regiment arranged them in the center, and they felt like they were making dumplings. If they could borrow the power of the Western Church at this time, it might also be a kind of protection for themselves. Okay. Gu Zibai nodded, and immediately his hands came together and made a clicking sound. It's quite funny to say that Gu Zibai's previous image in the script world was always tall and burly. But his true appearance is that he is lean, and even wearing clothes gives people a feeling of frailty. Gu Zibai jumped up, his figure like a kunpeng, and jumped directly from the Sun battleship. Whoosh! Accompanied by the sound of Gu Zibai's body falling rapidly, a group of Western players who were quickly gathering towards this direction were also startled. After receiving the news, they quickly gathered here. However, when they arrived, they did not find the intruder, and they were still wondering if they were looking in the wrong place. But he didn't expect a figure to fall from the sky. Boom! Gu Zibai's body was like a huge stone, hitting the ground in front of everyone, and the whole ground trembled for a moment. The violent impact set off a manic storm of sand and gravel on the ground, crackling and hitting everyone's faces. Only when the dust dispersed did everyone see Gu Zibai standing in front of everyone like a statue under the huge pothole, with his hands clasped in his arms. Most of the clothes on his body had already been shattered by the impact, revealing his tight muscles and lines like a leopard. A faint golden light spread from Gu Zibai's body. The body of a martial saint, the pinnacle of humanity, and the majestic aura dispersed, which actually made all the players in front of him gasp. Ha ha ha, he's quite handsome, Lao Bai. On the battleship, Gao Zhou and the others were watching with their heads raised. When they saw Gu Zibai's violent appearance, they couldn't help but cheer Lao Bai on the team channel. Come on, Lao Bai, sweep them away. Yeah, why don't you move? Don't you just look cool? Seeing Gu Zibai standing there motionless, Gao Zhou and others immediately began to urge him. Only then did they hear Lao Bai's cursing voice coming from the team channel, "Stop shouting, I came down too fast." Num. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1093. Gu Zibai moved his hands and feet, and when he saw that these players did not dare to step forward, he couldn't help bursting into laughter. Is there no one in the West? I have been standing here for so long, and you don't dare to take action. As soon as these words came out, all the Western players turned pale, but they were also heartbroken. The last time the Spear Gods fought against the Western Alliance, 2 God-level masters were killed and 1 was seriously injured. As for the other participating masters, the casualties were even more heavy, and the entire Western camp fell into a dead silence. Then a great internal strife broke out in the temple, so that the temple, which was originally the most glorious super team in the West, was divided into 5 and fell directly into a second-rate team. According to statistics afterwards, at least 2/3 of the certified players among Western players were killed in the last battle. Among them are many elite players who have been banned. It is conceivable how weak the strength of the Western camp is now, and in the final analysis, these Western players in front of Guzibai are just a group of hastily assembled stragglers. Their strength cannot be said to be bad, but it is really hard to say how strong they are. Of course, we cannot say that they are pitiful. If the gunslingers are defeated, the Western team will inevitably invade on a large scale, and the situation on the Chinese side may not be much better. But in the face of Guzibai's provocation, who could bear this tone? Let's all come together, I don't believe you can't kill him. Finally, some players still shouted slogans. After all, the opponent was invading, and if they didn't fight back, they would be dead ends. They had received the news a long time ago and knew that this time the other party came here to kill them all. In this case, they could only fight with their lives to find a way out. When the first Western player raised his hand to summon a huge firestorm, more than 10 players in front of him all started to release layers of barriers, trapping Guzibai in them. This was done not only to prevent Guzibai from escaping, but also to allow the power of all skills to gather in a limited space to produce stronger lethality. As soon as everyone took action, they activated the most lethal ace method. For a moment, spells, bombs, and even various props hit Guzibai like a rainstorm, and the terrifying explosion lit up the entire sky red. But Su Tong and others, who were sitting on the cloud, looked disappointed. There shouldn't be a main force of Western players here, so why are they at this level? Gao Zhou had already yawned and asked Master aside. Although Master's combat ability is not good, he has also been in several large teams in the West and is somewhat familiar with several large teams in the West. After hearing Gao Zhou's inquiry, Master shook his head. I'm afraid these players don't even have the 3rd-tier level. Besides, when he said this, Master paused and said, the strength of the Western camp actually does not lie in the players, but in the Holy See. That's not bad. Su Tong stood aside, and when he heard Master's words, he suddenly realized that the true heritage of Western players does not lie in those super teams, but in the Holy See. In this regard, the Western camp and the Chinese camp are completely different. It's just that Gao Zhou and others don't understand this, and they don't understand what it has to do with the Holy See. Su Tong patiently explained to them. We have gone through hundreds of schools of thought here, and finally the kingly education implemented by foreign Confucianism and internal law, whether it is Buddhism, Taoism, or those small religions, are all detained outside the court, so they ultimately failed to achieve success in China on the land. A greater authority has been formed. Although Confucianism has many shortcomings in educating the world, it must be said that it is precisely because of the thoughts of Confucian saints and the Confucian students of all generations who firmly control the court that they can avoid the situation of gods ruling the country and ghosts and gods. On the contrary, Western political powers have been subject to divine power for a long time. Even in the real world, the power of the Holy See was once so powerful that it could appoint and remove kings. Of course, in reality, the Holy See eventually collapsed, but in the world of gods, in the script world under its control, the Holy See has become the largest and strongest sect that has not been passed down for a very long time, and its power runs throughout Western history. Su Tong was not deeply impressed by the strength of Western players, but he met Del from the Western Holy See at the end of the New Territories script. The opponent's strength is definitely not inferior to Yan Zioki's. You can even take out a bag of divine gold diamonds as a greeting gift. You can imagine how deeply the Holy See has taken root in the world of the script. Not to mention, there are gods from the 2 camps of heaven and hell. To put it bluntly, Su Tong was not optimistic about the outcome of this alliance from the beginning, not only because of the greed of the gods, but also because of the profound Western heritage. It will only turn a large number of their players into cannon fodder. While Su Tong was explaining to everyone, the battle below was coming to an end. Yes, Gu Zibai didn't even move at this moment, and his figure was already submerged in all kinds of indiscriminate bombardment. The hole that was originally made by Gu Zibai was now smashed out into a huge fire pit by various spells. Ha ha ha, this arrogant guy is destined to pay the price for his stupidity and arrogance. Even the top players in the first line team can't last this long, right? Don't take it lightly, let's attack again. Seeing that Gu Zibai's figure could no longer be seen in the flames covering the sky in front of them, the faces of these Western players not only showed excitement. However, there were some people among them whose faces became paler and paler. Facing the enthusiastic attitude of the crowd, a chill grew in their hearts. Seeing that they still wanted to stop, they couldn't help but scream, "Don't stop, who of you will receive it, have you got the kill information? This guy is still alive." The words were like a basin of ice-cold water poured on everyone's heads. They looked at each other, but no one received the message about the kill. Now everyone gradually started to panic. There was no kill reminder. Could it be that the opponent was not dead? Or is it that the other party is not in front of them at all? Impossible, the surrounding areas have been sealed and reinforced by space mages. Even if the opponent has space prop cards, it is impossible to escape from here. Just when everyone was in shock, a blonde player's pupils suddenly tightened, and a black shadow gradually became clear in the barrier, and then a faint golden light pierced the surrounding chaos, and Gu-11 could be seen. Bai's figure became clearer and clearer, and his whole body was enveloped in a bright light. Is he still alive? Seeing this scene, everyone was frightened. When they discovered that the other party was not only still alive, but didn't even have any scars on his body, they felt a chill in their bones. Run! Finally, someone realized that a catastrophe was coming. While shouting to run quickly, they ran in the direction they came from without feeling any pain. But at this moment, Gu Zibai, who was in the sea of fire, slowly showed a cruel smile. "After beating me for so long, it's my turn." The moment Gu-11 finished speaking, a stream of blood as thick as a mountain surged from his body, penetrating the sky like a dragon, and the force was terrifying. In an instant, the huge amount of blood energy dispersed all the surrounding magic elements, and even the sealed barrier exploded into glass like snowflakes in an instant. Boom! Gu Zibai just stepped a little, and the huge power caused the surrounding earth to explode. Then people were like lightning. The next moment, everyone's eyes were swallowed up by a huge golden storm. Gu Zibai's figure was like a great beast. Wherever he passed, several players were directly knocked away with just one punch. Some players rushed forward risking their lives to buy time for their teammates to retreat, but when they got close to Gu Zibai, they discovered in despair that not only their own abilities, but even the prop cards had lost their effect. This is exactly the special passive and rampant martial arts forbidden method after Gu Zibai strengthened his prop Kaosheng to add 13. With itself as the center, all props, skills, and spell-like skills are imprisoned. The stronger your health, the wider the radiation range. With this ability and the body of Gu-11 by Martial Saint, it would be a terrible nightmare for almost most players to encounter him. At this moment, Gaozhou, who was standing on the deck watching the battle, could still feel a little more relaxed. This guy's tactics were enough to compete with Gu Zibai's, but the worst he could do was to fight and run away. As for Chang Wogu and Li Bo, they had different expressions. Chang Wuhen's eyes flashed with cold light from time to time. He not only strengthened the assassination technique to add 13, but also strengthened the Black Water Dragon Fang to level 13. With the power of the Earth Immortal, facing Gu Zibai, if it was an assassination situation, he was sure to severely injure Gu Zibai with one blow, and even complete the feat of killing Gu Zibai with one blow. But in a head-on confrontation, I'm afraid none of the 10 of them would be Gu Zibai's opponent. As for Li Bo, this kid was just watching the fun. Anyway, he would not fight against a monster like Gu Zibai. He had no chance of winning. Now, Gu Zibai's strength means that Yan Zioki, Bulyuan, and even Kang Xiazi, who are the god players, can overwhelm him. Under the god status, almost no one can beat him. Ha! Gu Zibai looked up to the sky and roared. The huge roar formed a shockwave visible to the naked eye, which directly knocked those players hiding in the distance and shooting hidden arrows into unconsciousness. Run, run quickly. Seeing Gu Zibai killing like a tiger entering a herd of sheep, the surviving players suddenly lost their fighting spirit and could only flee in confusion. This is the gap, an insurmountable chasm like a natural chasm. Such a strong blood essence can swallow millions of lives like an angry sea. Rumble. The lead clouds are like mountains, thick and heavy, making people breathless. Gu Zibai just used the simplest punch to form a terrifying punch, sweeping forward. No one could hold out under the power of the punch for 3 seconds before being knocked unconscious by this terrifying force. But despite Gu Zibai's lively fight, he didn't kill anyone. Those players fell to the ground and just passed out. Su Tong will not be soft on his enemies, but he is also not a butcher, and he will not like the 8 evil men who like to treat human lives like toys and rub them into pieces. For these ordinary players, Su Tong had no intention of killing them, but he was not a good person either. After Gu Zibai ended the battle, he let the sun battleship slowly fall and used the dragon beam to kill all these players. The bundles are strong and tight. When these players woke up, they suddenly discovered that Su Tong had tied them to the ground. You despicable and barbaric bandits, this is aggression, God will punish you. Seeing that he couldn't break free, a player yelled in anger. Su Tong glanced at the other party, then walked forward immediately, looked at the other party up and down, and couldn't help but sneered. Invasion? Compared to 100 years ago, when you big noses brought out the 8-nation alliance, your methods were much more cruel than ours. To this day, many of our country's national treasures are still displayed in your country's museums. After hearing this, the player was still trying to argue with Su Tong. Nonsense, it was your country that declared war on us first. Su Tong was too lazy to talk nonsense with this idiot and patted his head. Hey! I just like how tough you are. After saying that, Su Tong called to Chang Liuju, asked them to hand over all the script points, plus 1/3 of the prop cards in the prop book. Anyone who dares not to hand over will be sent to see the King of Hell. Since others have said that they are here to engage in aggression, why should I be polite? It is not difficult to let them live, but it is not possible to let them go like this. Just leave the rest to Chang Wugu. This dead eunuch has many ways to torture people. Su Tong then asked the team to rest while he walked towards the church in the distance. When I opened the door of the church, I saw that the church was filled with densely packed people, all of whom were residents of nearby towns. When Su Tong and the others entered the script world, they received news that Su Tong and his group were demons and were here to destroy the world. It doesn't matter where the news comes from, because when they entered the script world, they were warned that everything in this world would be hostile to them. So they spontaneously came to the church and prayed to God, hoping that God could kill these demons that suddenly appeared. When they saw Su Tong's black hair, black pupils, and yellow skin, in the eyes of the villagers, Su Tong and the others were the murderous demons in the story. Everyone looked at Su Tong with full eyes. A look of fear. However, when Su Tong strode to the priest who was praying, the priest jumped up first, holding the Bible in one hand and the cross in the other. He pointed at Su Tong and screamed as if he was stimulated, "In the name of Heavenly Father, I command you devil to tell you your name." Seeing this, Su Tong remained silent. He just took out a sign from the props book and threw it to the priest, "I want to see the archbishop of your area." The priest was startled and stared blankly at the shining golden sign in his hand. The expression on his face suddenly became particularly wonderful. First he was shocked, and then he felt incredible. There was a bit of suspicion in his pious eyes, and finally he carefully put the sign away, and ran out of the church at a trot amid the doubtful and shocked eyes of everyone. Su Tong was not in a hurry. He sat on a chair outside the church, lit a cigarette, and waited slowly. "Boss, what are we waiting for?" Li Bo walked over and asked curiously. "You'll find out later." Su Tong blew out a puff of smoke. "How about it, Chang Wuja killed a few of them." "No one was killed. Those players were just a bunch of idiots." Brother Chang made a few gestures under their crotches with a dagger, and they honestly handed over all the prop cards and script points. When talking about this, Li Bo did not forget to take credit and said, "I personally selected all the prop cards, and there are quite a lot of good things in them. Just divide the script points and prop cards among yourself. I won't use them here." Su Tong's words are not exaggerating. His demand for prop cards is getting less and less now. Unless it is a top prop card like the 9 Immortals Cauldron, even the best of the best will not be able to catch his eye. Li Bo laughed and said that many of the prop cards were useless to everyone, but there was one prop card that Li Bo left behind specifically for Su Tong. "Look." Li Bo handed a prop card to Su Tong like a treasure. When Su Tong saw it, he immediately became happy. This Li Bo is indeed the team's best lucky star, and he actually found gold out of the garbage. Time hourglass. It is said that the hourglass left by the god of time in the human world. Passive skill 1, Seal of Time. When suffering fatal damage, time around you can be stopped instantly for 1 second. Active skill 2, Time and Space Hourglass. Spend 3,000 script points to activate the time hourglass, causing a time force field to be generated around you. In the time stance state, you can speed up or slow down the flow of time around you at will. Duration, 30 seconds. Cooling time, 3 hours. Although this prop card looks relatively ordinary, any time prop card is extremely valuable. Su Tong happily accepted the prop card and thought to himself, sure enough, Li Bo, the mascot, has good luck. In the future, it would be better for him to do the work of touching corpses and unpacking boxes. With this prop card, Su Tong's mood suddenly improved a lot, and he and Li Bo started chatting while sitting outside the church. To be honest, at this time, other players would have already begun to plunder crazily and impatiently, but Su Tong was so slow and leisurely, and even had the attitude of a foreigner, thinking that they were the only ones in the Kimin family. While chatting, Li Bo suddenly felt something. Is there someone over there? Yes, the strength is quite strong. It seems that the Holy See is not that easy to deal with. Su Tong had long noticed that a team was heading towards him in the distance. He could even feel that the bishop sitting in the carriage had at least the strength of an enlightened person. At this time, Su Tong took out the Angel's Tears ring from the props book and put it on his finger again. After the opponent's carriage slowly approached the church, they saw that the entire church was surrounded by crusaders in white robes. Each person held a big sword in their hands and looked serious. Before the servant could open the door, the bishop sitting in the carriage hurriedly opened the door and ran straight to the church. "Hey, this way." Su Tong waved towards the other party. "Oh, God in heaven, praise God, your sudden arrival caused those ignorant fools to mistake your identity for an invading demon. Please forgive me for my original sin." As soon as the slender bishop walked up to Su Tong, he immediately knelt down, held up Su Tong's hand, and kissed the ring on Su Tong's hand. This scene made the common people in the church and even the crusaders on the side look dumbfounded. It seems that he did not expect that as the regional bishop here, Lord Steve would show such noble courtesy to this guy with yellow skin, black eyes, and black hair. "My Lord Bishop, your piety is the most pure and flawless I have ever seen. God will bless you." Su Tong reached out and gently touched the bishop's bald Tianling guy. "Please just call me Steve." As Steve said that, he returned the Pope badge that Su Tong gave to the priest to Su Tong. "Let's go, my troops are a little sleepy and need to find a place to rest. In addition, Bishop Steve, I really need you to help me contact the highest level of the Holy See." "Of course." The two of them got up and walked onto the carriage. Su Tong asked Gao Zhou and the others to drive the Sun battleship and follow them in the team channel. Although everyone didn't know what Su Tong was going to do, they could see that these members of the Holy See were very polite to Su Tong. Riding in the carriage, Su Tong looked at the endless farm outside and casually chatted with Bishop Steve. After chatting, he realized that his previous guess was completely correct. The Holy See's control over the world of the script far exceeded his expectations. Even in the script world dedicated to players, the power of the Holy See is still very powerful. Because players not only need to build the Holy See on a large scale, but also use the Holy See's divine authority as the only authority in the world. Even for all resources produced in the scenario world, players must pay 30% to the Holy See as tax. What? You are not willing? I'm sorry, if you just slap the label of a heretic, not only will the Holy See punish you, but even the script studio will blacklist you. In serious cases, you will be sent to the Holy See's trial. If the gods on the Chinese side treat players as free-range tool men, then the gods on the Western side treat players as sheep raised in pens. They call themselves shepherds, not only treating players as tools, but also squeezing the value out of them all the time. But speaking of it, the two are essentially the same, except that the Chinese gods are more gentle in their methods than those in the West. So even though Su Tong looked very pious towards the Holy See on his face, in his heart he was thinking about how to use the Holy See to completely muddy the waters. As for whether the Holy See would make any demands on him, Su Tong didn't care. Just like that wise saying, when faced with the enemy's sugar-coated bullets, you must learn to eat the sugar coating and throw back the bullets. Of course, Steve didn't know what the Holy Sun was thinking. After respectfully inviting Su Tong into their cathedral, Steve enthusiastically presented the specialties of the script world to Su Tong. It was a very strange metal called divine gold. Not only does it have a very strong defensive power, it is also as light as a feather. The most important thing is that this kind of divine gold has an amazing and unique power that can repel all magical powers. Su Tong took a look and realized that this thing was extremely good. If he forged a battle armor for Gu Zibai, it would definitely take Gu Zibai's strength to a higher level. So Su Tong naturally put forward this small request that was not excessive. Although Steve was embarrassed, in order to please the Holy Sun, he gritted his teeth and took out all the inventory in the past few years. But he didn't know that Su Tong had already figured out the origin of the divine gold when he came. He had already asked Li Bo and Gu Zibai to quietly explore there, preparing to use a trick to the Holy See to remove the inventory from the origin and the unopened products. The divine gold dug out is packed into a pot and thrown away. While Su Tong and others were arrogant in the church, the leaders of the 6th Regiment on the other side had gathered together for the first time. Not only the head of the 6th Regiment, but Yan Zioqi and Kang Xiazi were also among them. Speaking of which, they were able to gather together so easily only because of the boundary-breaking sign sold by Lo Jinfang. Otherwise, it would not be easy to gather together so easily. After Buelyuan slowly walked into the room and sat down, he saw Buelyuan take out a decree of the gods from his sleeve, take it out, and lay it flat on the table. This is the order of the gods, destroy its 7 doors. This terrible year of 2022 is finally coming to an end. This is not a good year. We have experienced too much history and are even forced to participate in it. Whether you are willing or not, I am not optimistic about the future, but I hope that the new in this year, may everyone be healthy and free from illness and disaster. Even if you don't get rich or have an affair, as long as you are healthy, you will be happy. Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1094. Destroy the Seven Gates. Looking at the decree on the table, Yan Zioqi first frowned. This is different from my original intention of coming here. I'm sorry for not accompanying you, so I'll take my leave. Yan Zioqi stood up and was about to walk out. But after taking a few steps, he heard Bulyuan sitting on the chair suddenly say, "This is the decree of the gods, and you cannot disagree with it. Lord Dumuyuanjun has personally stamped his seal here and ordered you to kill Su Tong, the leader of the seven sections. If you dare to leave, I dare to send a message to Lord Dumuyuan right now." Hearing the words Dumuyuanjun, Yan Zioqi's face flickered for a moment. He could not become the god of war without the support of Dumuyuanjun. If Dumuyuanjun personally sealed it, he would really have no reason to shirk. After seeing Yan Zioqi sit down, Bulyuan took out the boundary map. On the boundary map, the 6 regiments were like diamonds, sealing Su Tong's boundary firmly in the middle. Everyone seals his own realm. Be sure to seal the 7 sects in this world so that they have no way to escape, and also block the possibility of him finding foreign aid. After saying that, Buletinluan said in a deep voice, "Kimen is very strong. We all know how much money they make by opening Lojinfang. We only have props that can be strengthened to add 9. They may have more, even if there are no band players. But the strength is definitely not weaker than all of you, so I hope that you can join forces and make sure to strangle them here." As soon as Buletinluan said this, the eyes of the other 5 group leaders present inevitably showed strange expressions. The decrees of the gods are true, and it is also true that the gods want to kill the 7 sections. As for the reason, they don't know. They just heard that Su Tong seems to have something that the gods value. They don't know exactly what it is, but it doesn't matter. As Bulyuan said, the members of the 7 sects may have more powerful prop cards in their hands. Not only that, but also the core of Lojinfang. According to the rules this time, as long as they can kill the opponent, they may be able to control Lojinfang, which is an extremely huge temptation for anyone. After the meeting ended, the 5 regiment leaders stood up and left in a hurry, obviously going back to make preparations for this massacre. Yan Zioqi and Kang Xiazi sat in their original positions and did not move, just waiting for everyone to leave. Only then did Yan Zioqi look at Bulyuan. "There is no one here now. Don't tell me that you really plan to participate in this siege." Blind man Kang sat aside and calmly drank tea, and said calmly, "I have calculated it. Su Tong is doomed this time, but the disaster is not yours. This trip into muddy water is not that easy. I am old. I still want to live a few more years." 3 god-level titled experts sat at a table, and there was no need to hide anything from each other. At their level, everyone knew what they were thinking. Buletinluan raised his eyebrows slightly, took out a drawing from his prop book and placed it on the table. "Perhaps, this is our opportunity. At the same time, Su Tong and others are enjoying the highest courtesy of the church here. Steve personally arranged a sumptuous banquet for Su Tong and the others, accompanied them personally, and even gave many gifts to the soldiers on the Sun battleship." This scene shocked the remaining Western players. Especially the owner of the scenario world is a Western player named Estia. Not only did he have to accompany Smiley throughout the whole process, he even served as Su Tong's guide himself. He bluntly said that if Su Tong needed it, all the resources in his hands, even the lives of the residents here, could be left to Su Tong's disposal. This attitude simply stunned everyone and shocked the players who had been fighting against Gu Zibai and the others before. But what they didn't know was that Istia was also complaining secretly in her heart. But he had no choice. Even though he nominally occupied the script world, the will of the Holy See did not allow him to violate it in the slightest. Even though he really couldn't understand how an Easterner could become the Holy Son of the Holy See, but now, he was the Holy Son of the Holy See. The Pope in the Vatican has sent an oracle, asking him to take good care of Su Tong. Soon, someone will come to take the son away in person. So during this period, he was not only responsible for meeting all Su Tong's requirements, but also responsible for protecting Su Tong's safety. Istia felt like thousands of grass and mud horses were floating through her heart, and she was about to vomit blood. But he had no temper at all in this situation. After a delicious meal, Estia especially took Su Tong to a secret place. It was a huge underground cave, not sure how deep it was, but the further down he went, the more Su Tong could feel that the air below was full of pure life force. Lord Holy Son, what you see next will be the biggest secret in this script world. Istia said with pride. Your generosity is as bright as the sun in the sky. I will definitely remember this generosity in my heart. Su Tong couldn't help but praise Estia's generosity. But this compliment was obviously not what Estia wanted. Estia coughed twice and said, to be honest, I have served the Holy See for many years. It is said that I have long been satisfied with entering the Holy Realm request, but now we lack a guide. Sanctuary. Su Tong raised his eyebrows slightly. Is it the Vatican? As soon as these words came out, Estia's ignorance of Su Tong reached a new level again. He really didn't know how this guy who didn't even know the holy domain became the holy son of their holy see. Estia even felt vicious in his heart. I thought to myself, did he have an affair with an angel? Of course, Estia would not dare to say this, and even needed to explain Su Tong enthusiastically. Yes, but no, the Vatican exists in every script world, but not all Vatican can be called a sanctuary. Only in the extremely distant past, it was the chief helm of the Holy See, after the birth of the Son of God. New era. After Estia explained it in detail, Su Tong finally understood that the so-called Holy Land was in the Vatican in the long past. There is the main helm of the Holy See, and its influence is extremely huge, even radiating to all script worlds. The Pope of every era has mastered the method of contacting the Holy Realm, and can receive orders and even support from the Holy Realm. In this regard, it is really similar to Kunlun. While walking, Istia talked about the various wonders of the sanctuary. It was said that it was an eternal kingdom of gods, with countless gods living in it. Even the legendary 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. As long as players enter the kingdom of God, they can live forever. This is also the reason why Istia pleases Su Tong so much. Naturally, Su Tong would not refuse such a request. Just when he was about to agree, Su Tong suddenly glared. I saw colorful lights rippling on the ground in front of me, and the huge life breath was almost too rich to be dissolved in the rainbow light. The life force contained in these liquids is even several times greater than that of thunder fluid. It can't be overstated to say that it is absolutely a treasure of heaven and earth. This kind of rare treasure is something that can be encountered but cannot be found. This is the Earth Spring treasure liquid, which contains a lot of life force. This was originally the holy land of the Druid sect, but now the Druid sect has been eliminated by us, so these treasure liquids have become unique here. Resources, I guarantee that even in other script worlds, there is no treasure like this in them. Istia explained the importance of this item to Su Tong, saying that no matter how serious the injury was, as long as you drink the treasure liquid, you can recover quickly. It was precisely because of these treasures that Estia was able to rise quickly and become a certified player at the LV5 level. At this time, Su Tong was embarrassed to say anything beautiful, and his expression immediately became serious. He turned around and looked at Estia seriously. The serious gaze made Istia feel a little nervous. He patted his chest and assured Estia, Your Excellency Estia, your loyalty and belief in the church have deeply moved me, but your approach is really thoughtless. Ah! Istia was a little confused. Just listen to Su Tong say, now the East is launching a massive attack. The real invaders will arrive soon. These treasures are too precious. You should move them quickly. This. Estia was a little confused for a moment, but Su Tong didn't care whether he understood it or not. He frowned and said, besides, You haven't reported this kind of thing to the Holy See, right? Istia swallowed and said, this. So once these things are leaked, your loyalty will be greatly tested. Your Excellency Estia, if you can trust me, please leave these treasures to me for safekeeping. Believe me, because next, your guide is the messenger who leads you to the Holy Land. Well. Estia originally wanted to share the treasure liquid with Sutong, but at this moment Sutong directly took off a big hat, making Estia's mouth twitch a few times, and finally cursed this guy in his heart for being too greedy. But soon Estia sneered secretly in her heart, you have such a big appetite, I'm afraid you won't be able to eat it. These treasure liquids cannot be contained in ordinary containers. Only special crystal bottles can contain them. Thinking of this, Istia simply nodded generously and said, this is exactly what I meant, Your Majesty the Holy Sun. Hey, you don't have enough loading containers later, let's see what you do. Istia secretly waited for Sutong to make a fool of himself, but at this moment, a huge treasure furnace appeared behind Sutong. The treasure furnace, like the sun, has appeared, and the blazing temperature makes Estia feel like she is in an oven. Following a movement in Sutong's heart, the great Sun Ruyi furnace sank directly into the treasure liquid, and a huge vortex appeared in front of the two of them. But after a while, all the treasure liquid here was sucked into the great Sun Ruyi furnace. This scene made Estia on the side couldn't help but widen her eyes, her jaw almost dropped, and she couldn't help but scream in her heart. No, this isn't right. Shouldn't this damn furnace be corroded into slag? Istia never imagined that this would be the result, and she couldn't help but stand there dumbfounded. How did he know that the terrifying power of Sutong's Ruyi furnace was transformed from Sutong's innate Taoist foundation, and it was a treasure related to Sutong's life? Its power was far more powerful than those of these earthly spring treasures. Naturally, it will not be affected by the earthly spring treasure liquid. While Estia was stunned, Sutong had already taken back the Ruyi furnace and patted Estia on the shoulder. Your Excellency Estia, you must believe that your efforts will always be rewarded. Estia looked sad for a moment, squeezed out a smile that was uglier than crying and said, yes, I think so too. Blood loss. This damn yellow-skinned monkey. Greedy guy, you will go to hell, Estia cursed for a while in her heart, and then she could only use Aku's spirit to comfort herself. Forget it, I still have some stocks anyway, being able to exchange for the qualification to enter the holy domain is also a good deal. But Estia probably never expected that Sutong did not finish his words, but added silently in his heart, of course, except when you meet a liar. This earth spring treasure liquid just made up for his previous deficit in thunder accumulation liquid. Sutong originally planned to find an opportunity to let the little fat man attract Tian Li to get some thunder accumulation liquid. But now it seems that he has saved himself a lot of trouble. Sutong looked at the place quite well, especially after the earth spring treasure liquid dried up, revealing the ground below that had been soaked all year round. It was as smooth as a mirror and contained rich life breath. It just so happens that I need to continue to comprehend the Nine Immortals Cauldron. This place is also a good choice as a retreat. Thinking of this, Sutong asked Estia to go back first, and he wanted to rest here for a while. Estia saw that Sutong had taken away all the treasures in one breath, and felt extremely sad. After hearing this, she did not want to stay here any longer. She resisted the urge to fight Sutong, bowed slightly, and then out of the cave. After Estia left, Sutong released Dia and a few others to guard the entrance of the cave. Then he found a more glorious place to sit down, and summoned the Nine Immortals Cauldron to hang in front of him. The inheritance of the first immortal is unknown, but Sutong named it Xiaozihu based on its characteristics. Now that he has mastered the Ziziju, now is the time to understand the inheritance of the second immortal. I saw wisps of thoughts flying out from between his eyebrows and pouring into the Nine Immortals Cauldron. Have you heard? Those scary yellow-skinned, black-haired guys last time turned out to be emissaries of the Holy See. God, this world is so crazy. The last time I heard something so outrageous was the last time. In the tavern in the town, many people were discussing Su Tong's affairs. Even if they are recognized by the church, Su Tong and the others will still be treated with hostility by this world as intruders. This kind of hostility can even be reflected in these ordinary people. And as Su Tong and the others stay here longer, this hostility will become stronger. Even recently, some children have been sneaking up on the Sun battleship from time to time and throwing stones at the battleship. The Holy See Crusaders who were responsible for guarding turned a blind eye to this. If they were not supported by their devout faith, I am afraid they would not accept such a strange task at all. While these people were talking among themselves, a drunk man wandered out of the tavern. Yet, he opened his mouth and let out a wine burp. When he raised his head and was about to yawn, the air suddenly got stuck in his throat. He stared blankly at the sky, fear like a poisonous snake crawling up his spine. This was probably a sight he could never imagine in his life. I saw a huge crack appearing in the sky. Originally, the crack seemed to be as big as a coin, but soon, the crack became as huge as a canyon. The black crack was like a scar on Kang Tian's face. As it grew larger, a black object flashing with mysterious talismans gradually poked out of the crack. What is that? Anyone who is not blind can see such a big movement. All the residents looked up at the appearance of the black object and couldn't help but feel nervous to the point where they couldn't breathe. Some people were even so frightened that they lay on the ground uncontrollably and vomited. Buzz. The black stone in the crack gradually poked out, revealing its huge body, which was a stone tablet as big as a mountain. Each of the shining runes on the stone tablet is a seal of the gods in the heavens. The iron hooks and silver strokes are vigorous and powerful, blooming with divine clouds and shining with a dreamlike luster, making each of the god seals appear to be alive, like a magic lamp stays on. This scene left everyone stunned. Art, this is simply the greatest work of art. Some people screamed loudly, as if they saw the source of art, and danced with excitement. However, just such a stone tablet, which was called art, quickly fell straight down after escaping from the crack, aiming directly at the center of the town. When the huge shadow gradually enveloped people's heads, everyone closed their eyes in despair, and everything was over. Boom! 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 There was a huge earthquake, as if the sky was falling and the earth was falling, and the whole world seemed to be caught in an apocalyptic earthquake. Su Tong's eyes suddenly opened, and a dazzling golden light appeared in his eyes. His spiritual power was activated, and he looked through the rocks towards the source of the earthquake. When he saw the huge stone tablet erected in the ruins, Su Tong was shocked. It's the memorial tablet for the gods. Is it coming so soon? On the stone tablet are the seals of the gods, shining like bright stars. But behind this beauty, it comes at the cost of sacrificing the entire world. Among the tasks of the gods, one task is to summon the stone tablet and build an altar. These sacrificial monuments can continue to grow in size by hunting creatures as sacrifices. The larger they are, the more seals of gods are on them. The team members who summon the sacrificial monuments can obtain the blessings of the gods on the sacrificial monuments. But Su Tong did not complete this task, and others in the team would not touch this task either. But at this moment, the stone tablet suddenly appeared, which inevitably made Su Tong think of the 6th Regiment. Immediately he glanced around, and suddenly a group of people appeared around the stone tablet. Among them were faces that Su Tong was familiar with. He couldn't name these people, but he just remembered seeing them in the arena. Oh, by the way, one of them made a deep impression on Su Tong. He was one of the quasi-core members of the shark group, Lei Gong. Seeing these familiar figures, Su Tong's face suddenly became cold. He knew that the 6th Regiment had bad intentions and arranged the 7 sects in the script world at the center of the 6th Regiment, So he took precautions and wanted to lure the behemoth of the Holy See into trouble so that he could use its strength. But he didn't expect that the other party would act so quickly, completely beyond his expectation. So, did you come to our 7 gates from the beginning? Su Tong didn't believe that the 6th Regiment had already cleaned up the other script worlds. It was estimated that they had just cleaned up the script world that had arrived for the first time, and then immediately turned their spearheads towards him. Su Tong then looked in other directions. Sure enough, there were 6 such huge stone tablets, each representing a team. Everyone from the 6th Regiment is here. Now even Su Tong began to feel troubled. Leaving aside other teams, the gunslingers are definitely a huge threat, especially Buelyuan himself. As a god-level powerhouse, this guy also holds an item card that has been enhanced to add 9. He is so powerful that he even feels afraid of it. As expected, those who come out to fool around always have to pay back. Su Tong sighed inwardly. Although Lo Jinfang was making money crazily for them, it was inevitable that they would endanger their enemies. Fortunately, he had stuck the enhancement limit at add 9 from the beginning. Except for Yan Zioki, no one in the other team had an item card that could be enhanced to add 13. However, just when Su Tong was rejoicing, his pupils suddenly tightened and he saw a figure walking out of the ruins. This man was wearing a black martial arts uniform. He suddenly raised his head and met Su Tong's eyes. Now it was Su Tong's turn to look bitter. What are you afraid of? The person in front of him was none other than Yan Zioki. After Yan Zioki noticed Su Tong's peak, a bitter smile appeared on his face, but his lips moved slightly, as if he was saying something. Su Tong was startled. After following the words on his lips and rereading them in his mind, he withdrew his divine eye. At this moment, Gao Zhou's shout came from the team channel, signaling Su Tong to quickly return to the Sun battleship. After Su Tong thought for a moment, he asked them to take off first. The Sun battleship is the biggest trump card in their hand now. It is precisely because of the Sun battleship that even when faced with the siege of the 6th Regiment, he does not panic at all. After all, there are only a few players who can fly and fight, and with the presence of Gu Zibai, Chang Liuzhu, Gao Zhou, and even Li Bo, with the help of the Sun battleship, even if they are defeated, they can easily escape. But now, Su Tong wanted to see how much force the 6th Regiment had deployed to surround and kill him. Let's go. After Su Tong took Dia and the others into the hall, he rushed out of the cave. Holy Sun! Go quickly, go quickly! As soon as they walked out of the cave entrance, they saw Estia and Bishop Steve rushing over with embarrassed faces. Steve took Su Tong's arm and said with a sad face, Holy Sun, the connection between the Pope and the Holy Domain has been interrupted. It is no longer safe here. Please leave here quickly. Estia's face was full of fear. Although he knew that Dongfang would launch a massive attack this time, he did not expect that the offensive would be so terrifying. He wanted to return to reality, but was reminded that he was currently at war and could not return. Obviously someone has blocked the script world. Blocking off the entire script world is not something ordinary people can do. No wonder Estia is panicking like a dog at this moment. Faced with the frightened expressions of the two people, Su Tong just smiled faintly, reached out and patted the two people's shoulders to reassure them, and then walked towards the distant stone monument that reached into the clouds. Are you crazy? Are you going to die? Estia saw that Su Tong was still walking in that direction, and regardless of etiquette, he stepped forward just to hold Su Tong. However, his hand failed to touch Su Tong's arm, and Su Tong calmly dodged it. Facing the frightened Estia, Su Tong calmly took out a cigarette and put it to his lips. He did not light it, but just held it casually in his mouth. Our great man from the east once said something. What words? Estia frowned, not interested in those so-called great men. But Su Tong's face was full of confidence and tenacity. His figure disappeared in front of Estia in an instant, leaving only one sentence in his ears. If you can hit him with one punch, you won't get hit by hundreds of punches. Happy New Year! You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1095. This script world was originally full of vitality, full of greenery everywhere, and could breed things like earth spring treasure liquid. You can imagine how powerful the breath of life here is. Coupled with the strong support of Estia and the Holy See, agriculture here has developed rapidly, the people live and work in peace and contentment, the folk customs are simple, and everything is full of vitality. But at this moment, the prosperity is gone, the grass and trees are withered, and the earth is desolate. The six-sided stone tablets fall, piercing deeply into the depths of the earth, madly absorbing the life force of the earth. The terrifying impact of the fall has even destroyed the towns and cities on the ground. All living things were wiped out. Looking around, I saw red soil and reddish-brown rocks washed out of the earth, which was desolate. In the dust, the 6 blood sharks walked out of the ruins, and saw layers of divine rings rippling around their bodies. Luck, fortune, lifespan, recovery, damage reduction, strong attack, each layer of aura, with the blessing of the seals of the gods, each of them is like a god, descending into this world. The 6 people were headed by Lei Gong, followed by Shan Dun, Catwoman, Yu Shen, Xiao Yu, Kuai Dao, and other 6 people. They are the new masters of the Blood Shark Regiment. Each of them is top-notch in strength, and they are the vanguard sent by the Blood Shark Regiment. The 7 gates are here. It seems that they haven't had time to do the mission of the gods yet. Such a large population is really an advantage for us. Catwoman couldn't help but giggle as she looked at the broken walls in the ruins at her feet and the corpses under the rubble. This time the Alliance launched a large-scale attack. It was just the Blood Shark Regiment. There were 3 groups and 6 squads below. It could be said that there was more than enough. Although they have been promoted to front-line corps members, they may not have many opportunities to take action. Often, other teams have already slaughtered everyone before they can take action. Now I have found a big bargain. Maybe people don't like this aspect of the script. The royal god wore a mask and made a hoarse, knife-like voice, which made people wonder whether this guy was actually a human. But this is true. Catwoman couldn't help but nodded after thinking about it. That's right. The 7 sects rely on Lo Jinfang to make countless fortunes. Hey, our Blood Shark group sells intelligence, engages in assassinations, and is famous. The next 4 industries are said to make a lot of money every day, but compared with Lo Jinfang, they are not even close. Stop talking nonsense and do more. No matter how poor the team is, they will not lose a single point to us. No matter how rich Lo Jinfang is, they will not give us a single point. Don't forget our mission. Lei Gong interrupted everyone's chatting with a dark face. Their mission this time was just to monitor the 7 gates. As long as the position of the 7 gates is locked, the task is relatively easy. When the 7 sects are wiped out this time, they will also be able to get a large reward from them. Sandgull. Lei Gong looked at Xiao Yu, who was responsible for the reconnaissance, and saw Xiao Yu nodded. Just as he was about to prepare for reconnaissance, his pupils suddenly tightened. Look over there. Following Xiao's words, the 6 people all looked to the left. I saw Su Tong's figure strolling not far away. In this boundless blood-colored land, it is particularly chilly and cold. At a glance, there is almost nothing, it is empty and dead. The only scenery is probably just some standing ruins and broken walls, but Su Tong's figure is particularly conspicuous here. Su Tong didn't walk fast, but his steps were very firm, one step at a time, with Emo ran on his back, flashing black and white light, which made him look particularly conspicuous here. At this time, he stopped and stood here quietly, staring at the end of the earth, looking at the 6 blood sharks, but there was a look of disappointment on his brows. Are you the only one sent by the 6th Regiment? He will start the first battle with the 6th Regiment. This time he is determined to fight, but the 6 people in front of him obviously make him feel a little disappointed. Although Su Tongren was far away, his words were like thunder, causing the expressions of Lei Gong and others to sink immediately. But everyone is faced with a formidable enemy. They had seen Su Tong take action at the exhibition, and with just a look, Tyrant Zhang was frightened away. He even provoked Bulletin Luan and despised their leader, making him a cruel and big trouble. Su Tong glanced at Lei Gong, and raised the corners of his mouth slightly. After all this time, your thunder skills have not improved? I think it's better to give up as soon as possible because of Lei Gong's reputation. Hearing Su Tong's words, Lei Gong's face turned dark instantly. He stepped forward and stared at Su Tong, and said suspiciously, "Is it you?" The person who spoke to him like this last time was the guy who defeated him with thunder in the arena, and even nearly took away his title of Thunder God. It was he who made himself the laughing stock of many players. Everyone knew that his title of Thunder God was just a trick to pick up an unwanted title. Who else could it be besides me? Su Tong said nonchalantly, and then glanced at Shan Dun again. Why, your shield is no longer brittle. Are you going to come here and get beaten again? As soon as these words came out, Shan Dun's face was almost twisted with anger. Now they were sure that Su Tong in front of them was the guy who defeated Lei Gong and Shan Dun in the arena. For a moment, I was filled with shock and anger. What was shocking was that the other party once powerfully killed Zhang Zhenghao at the exhibition. Not only did he ignore the leader Susha, but he also provoked the gun god Bulyuan. His strength was bottomless. But when the arena had just been established and Yan Zioki had not yet become a god, they had fought against Su Tong in the arena. At that time, Su Tong's strength was only slightly stronger than them. How long had it been before, and was this guy's strength already so terrifying? But at the same time, they couldn't help but feel angry in their hearts. Even if they were once defeated, now the 6 of them join forces and are a force that cannot be underestimated. How could they be so despised? But at this moment, Su Tong actually found a stone and sat down. He was completely unprepared to fight with them. He was playing with a cigarette on his fingertips and looked like he was sitting here waiting for someone, completely ignoring them. Seeing this, Shan Dun wanted to step forward, but was stopped by Catwoman. Our mission is to monitor him and don't cause trouble. But Shan Dun obviously has a bad temper, and he can't stand the feeling of being looked down upon. Even if you can't beat him, you can't let him be so arrogant. If you are afraid of him now, don't even think about taking another step forward in the future. Shan Dun has the determination to become a strong man. Even if he is going to lose, he must lose clearly. If he just doesn't dare to move forward in a daze like this, he is afraid that his determination will be stained and he will stop at this level from now on. I saw Shan Dun striding towards Su Tong. Every step he took, an elemental shield flashed on his body. In the blink of an eye, there were 38 shields. The densely packed shields formed like a mountain and rushed towards Su Tong. His 1000 mountain shield has been upgraded and has been strengthened to level 9. Each shield not only has powerful defense, but also awakens the power of the elements, and its power is far more powerful than before. In addition, his physical strength has also been greatly increased. It is no longer what it used to be. Now he only needs to stand there, and his aura is like a mountain that ordinary people cannot climb. Seeing that Shan Dun had taken action, Lei Gong and others naturally would not sit still and wait for death, and followed closely. I told you before, your shield is too fragile. Facing Lei Gong who rushed forward, Su Tong looked very indifferent. This indifference was not only a sign of confidence, but also a manifestation of invincibility. He suddenly had an epiphany. The invincible mentality is the key for players to break through themselves and break their constraints. Perhaps it was just like this that Yan Zioki was able to rise up and become a god-level player. Whether it's crispy or not, you'll know when you try it. Veins popped up on Shandun's forehead, and 38 elemental light shields merged into a huge black shield in an instant. After gathering the power of all the elements, the black shield actually fell into a state of nothingness, like a huge black hole. This is the most powerful killing move of Mountain Shield, Gate of Darkness. However, Su Tong did not move at all, but with a snap of his fingers, a sword light rose up. The void in front of him was directly penetrated by a black and white sword light. Puff. The next second, a bright red wound spattered on Shandun's chest, blood spurted out, and the man fell heavily to the ground. The strongest shield he was proud of was actually split in half without any obstruction. This scene made Lei Gong and others stand on end, and a chill swept through their bodies. It was as if they had been cast a body-holding spell, standing behind the mountain shield and not daring to move. Shandun, as the team's MT, was actually being chopped straight out like tofu at this moment. This terrifying lethality completely refreshed their understanding. No wonder the leader of the team, Bloodshark, repeatedly told them before leaving that as long as they monitor the 7 gates, that's it. Su Tong did not kill Shandun. He watched him stand up unsteadily, with a look of unwillingness and loss on his face. He just said with a calm expression, "If there is a sword to cut through all things in the world, there must be a shield to block all things. If your shield is broken, it means you are not strong enough." After hearing Su Tong's words, Shandun was stunned for a few seconds and then nodded. Su Tong nodded and said, "Thank you, I will definitely become stronger." When Lei Gong and others saw that Su Tong had no murderous intention, they couldn't help but feel relieved in their hearts. Su Tong grinned, showing a sunny smile, stood up and walked to Shandun. "I believe you will have that day." As he spoke, he took the initiative to extend his hand to Shandun. Looking at the palm stretched out to him, Shandun's nose felt a little sore. He was obviously impressed by Su Tong's broad-mindedness. Even Lei Gong and others beside him couldn't help but feel moved. They felt a little sorry in their hearts, feeling that the other party was a person. At least this kind of mind, among all the players, I'm afraid only a few people can have it. However, when Shandun stretched out his palm towards Su Tong boldly, snapped. Su Tong frowned, but he slapped Shandun's palm away, and narrowed his eyes into a gap. "Think too much, robbery. Both men and women, take off your clothes and hand over all the script points." Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1096. Su Tong didn't want to kill anyone, not just because he had a good impression of these 6 guys. Well, who could hate the people who came to give him hot spots every time? More importantly, he didn't want to become the executioner in the hands of the gods at this time. The gods need sacrifices, and there is no guarantee that players will not be among them. As a tool man, you can only make the best use of your resources when you exert them to the last trace of residual heat. I believe the gods must be well aware of this truth. It's just that he doesn't know what method the gods will use to complete the massacre of the players, but he thinks of something that happened in the last script world. After Gu Zibai took Ji Zhou and others to fight in the battlefield, strong marks of killing appeared on their bodies. This killing mark took a long time to fade away after Gu Zibai returned. According to Gu Zibai, this killing mark made him unable to calm down and made him more and more bloodthirsty. If it weren't for his firm mind and the martial arts that neutralized his own murderous aura, he might have lost his true nature long ago. This incident reminded Su Tong that there was no guarantee that the gods would not make a fuss about this matter. To be on the safe side, he was unwilling to kill people easily now. But if you don't kill them, you won't kill them. If you let them go like this, it is absolutely impossible. As a result, Su Tong forcibly stripped the 6 people of their clothes while Catwoman screamed. Shandun was so aggrieved that he wanted to roar, but Su Tong slapped him to the ground. Lei Gong unleashed all his strength and struck down countless thunder rays. As a result, Su Tong used the Ziziju. With a slight grab, the thunder from the sky was taken into the palm of his hand, and his backhand struck Yushin and Sheu who were trying to escape. Then he ducked in front of Lei Gong. Under Lei Gong's extremely aggrieved and unwilling gaze, Su Tong knocked out two big teeth with a punch. He glanced back, stamped his feet, and shattered the ground. With a flick of his finger, he pulled out the sand gull that had fallen into the ground with a bunch of dragon talismans. Finally, he came to Catwoman. In her shocked and embarrassed eyes, Su Tong casually pushed her into the ground. In the end, under Su Tong's power, the six of them could only cry and take off all the scripts and all their clothes. Yes, not even their underwear was left. In order to prevent them from taking clothes from the prop book, Su Tong didn't even let go of the daily necessities in their prop book. After making sure that they were really naked, he was satisfied and gave everyone a mark of 999 weapon enhancement and night peeing. Technique. Catwoman might feel better, but as for the other five, Su Tong can't control them that much. Seeing each of them with red faces, covering their vitals, and full of grief and anger, Su Tong was in a good mood. Then he walked to the monument to the gods. This stone tablet is covered with the seals of the gods. Each stroke, iron hook and silver stroke is vigorous and powerful. All of them reveal the ingenuity of the miraculous creation and shine with a dream-like luster. As the residents who were smashed to death said, it is simple and simple. The seal is simply a work of art. What is he going to do? Not far away, the mountain shield held up the swollen panda and watched Su Tong walk step by step to the stone monument, feeling a bad feeling in his heart. He doesn't want to destroy the memorial monument, right? Sheu came forward and said. Impossible, is he crazy? He is provoking the gods by destroying the memorial monument. Kui Dao also came over, feeling that Su Tong did not dare to do this. But after saying this, Kui Dao's expression also became hesitant. After all, the seven sects were the team named by the gods to be destroyed. Shan Dun glared at Su Tong fiercely. I have informed the regiment leader, and the regiment leader will come to support himself later. With this tone, Before he finished speaking, Shan Dun suddenly turned around and glared at Sheu behind him. Sheu's face turned red and he quickly twisted around. Leave me alone. Shan Dun finished speaking angrily, but when he turned around, his expression changed instantly. No, hold on to me. As he spoke, a bright light suddenly flashed in front of his eyes. A huge sword light penetrated the void. The sword light lit up and was dazzling. It charged at the bullfighting force and struck down, causing the void in front of it to explode. Not good. Lei Gong's expression changed drastically and he couldn't care less. He grabbed Catwoman and Yushin who were hiding in the pit and flew behind Shan Dun. Open. Dark door. Shan Dun spread his arms and once again summoned the dark door to block the situation in front of him. The six people lined up in a straight line, and in an instant, there was flying sand and rocks in front of them. A huge shockwave roared in the air, and the memorial monument in front of him was split into two halves in this bright light. Boom! Countless rubble smashed over, causing the surrounding sky to collapse, as if it was the end of the world. Boom! One after another, large stones hit the dark door, and the huge impact made Shan Dun's body retreat involuntarily. Hold it! Raikau pushed the goddess in front of him and blocked Catwoman behind him. He raised his hands, and veins appeared on his face. No one dared to feel discouraged. They waited until the bright light in front of them gradually dimmed before the shockwave completely disappeared. Before Shan Dun could breathe a sigh of relief, the power in front of him suddenly disappeared, and he was caught off guard and pinned to the ground. Oh, it hurts. By the time Shan Dun and others climbed up with their hands on their waists, Su Tong had already gone straight to the other team. Anyway, As long as Yan Zioqi is avoided, Su Tong will not pay attention to others at all. Su Tong's movements were extremely fast, and not long after, 2 more sacrificial monuments were cut off by him. The 6th Regiment also received news one after another, and the news they received was extremely infuriating. Su Tong swept all the way. Although he didn't kill anyone, he took off everyone's clothes along the way, leaving even a pair of underwear, cut off the memorial tablets, and plundered everyone's script points. Anyone who was unconvinced and wanted to resist would be slapped to the ground by Su Tong. Facing Su Tong, the elite of these teams had no equal enemy. The most hateful thing was that before leaving, this guy cast 2 curses on the naked people. These 2 curses are too cruel and shameful to be spoken of. I believe most men will have a deep understanding of how painful it is to wake up in the morning and not be able to urinate. Even Bulyuan of the Spear God Regiment couldn't help but secretly shake his head while raising the corners of his mouth after hearing this. As Blind Mankong said, this guy is a bit ungrateful. Yan Zioqi, this bastard, he is just paddling. The blood shark came to the Gunsling Group's station angrily, slapped the table angrily and cursed. The original plan was for Yan Zioqi to lead other team members to surround and kill the 7 gates, but who would have thought that Yan Zioqi had been paddling and did not take the initiative to find Su Tong at all. Some people even reported that Yan Zioqi was not moved by Su Tong's behavior at all, and just stood guard in front of his memorial monument, waiting for Su Tong to come to his door. But this bull is too deceptive. After a while, the leader of Fanmai Mountain, the monk Fanseng, also came. The Fanmai Mountain team is different from other teams. Other teams have to be assessed based on their strength before they can join the team. Fanmai Mountain requires players to practice Buddhism. The stronger the foundation of Buddhism, the higher the probability of joining the team. If you have great attainments in Buddhism, you can even use team resources to forcibly increase your strength. Lift up. Therefore, Fanmai Mountain is the only one among the 6 regiments with religious overtones. Although the Brahma monk does not have the title of God, he is recognized as a Buddhist saint, and his strength is not inferior to Baiwan. He should have been awarded the title of God a long time ago, but the Buddhist monk himself gave up, feeling that monks should not care about such a false title. He originally thought that there was still some room for maneuver in the relationship between Su Tong and Buddhism. As long as Su Tong confessed his crime and completely returned to Buddhism, his life could be saved with the power of Fanmai Mountain. But he didn't expect that as soon as Su Tong took action, his team members almost broke the rules. He had never seen such a shameless method. Is this something that humans can do? Return it to the Buddhist venerable, taking off people's clothes and using such despicable methods, is this called a venerable person? Before leaving, what did you say in the name of helping them practice? If the news spreads, Fan Mission will probably lose all their face. The Buddhist monk also broke the speech precept today, which shows how much Su Tong's actions stimulated him. In addition to the Brahma monk, soon the Daman, Baidu, and Momin also came to the door one after another, scolding Su Tong for his despicable, shameless, and obscene behavior. Bulyuan sat on the chair and listened, but his heart was like a bright mirror. How can a person who can sit in this position be so simple? It seems that he is here to denounce, but he is just taking the opportunity to attack, accusing Yan Zioqi of slacking off and not fighting. In fact, the people they sent were just cannon fodder as a touchstone. Now they know that Su Tong's strength is far beyond expectations. In addition, Su Tong is not the only one in Kimen. There are more forces behind him. If they really fight hard, the loss to the team is huge. So their real purpose was to lay the groundwork in advance. If Yan Zioqi continued paddling, they would have to let Bulyuan take action himself. Bulyuan actually became interested. Just when he was about to speak, he suddenly raised his eyebrows slightly and strode out of the tent. He looked at the sky above his head and frowned for a moment. The other 5 group leaders also seemed to sense that something was wrong. After walking out of the camp, their expressions suddenly became serious. I saw a bright silver light in the sky gradually penetrating the world barrier. Holy see! Buletinluen's pupils twitched. He reached out and grabbed the spear, and saw that the tip of the spear was shaking, and a half-moon-shaped spear shadow rose into the sky, like a blazing phoenix, striking directly at the crack. Boom! Before the spear light could break through the already weak world barrier, a big golden hand penetrated the world and hit Buletinluen's spear light hard. The big hand flew across the air, colliding with the gun light, and a golden cloud exploded. It was so heavy that it was suffocating, and the earth directly collapsed. In this terrifying explosion, only one person was seen piercing through the world barrier and coming rampantly. This person's steps were not fast, but his figure was already approaching in an instant, and his figure and appearance were clearly visible. This is a 21 or 12-year-old man. He is not very tall, but he is very strong. His skin is bronze, and his body is like a cast of copper water, giving people a strong sense of oppression. He has long golden hair, bright eyes, and is very sharp. Coupled with his black and red priest robe, it immediately gives people a sense of oppression, even a bit aggressive. At first glance, he is a very powerful person. What does he look like? It's all in your hands. A moment later, the visitor stopped in front of Buletin. His figure was hanging in the air 3 feet above the ground. 2 frightening beams of light shot out from his eyes, sizing up Buletin like 2 sharp swords. I have come under the command of the Lord God to welcome the Holy Son. Anyone who stands in my way, will die.